Batman. The critics call it spectacular, says Gannett Newspapers. Gene Shalit says Jack Nicholson is colossal. CBS TV says it's a terrific time at the movies. And Rolling Stone magazine declares it a triumph. You can't take your eyes off it. What are you? I'm Batman. Critics rave Batman could be the movie of the decade. Rated PG-13. Now playing.
Welcome to another episode of ReconCinemation. I am John Diner.
And I'm David Munchak.
And I'm Brent Hutchins.
And this is the podcast that takes a look back at some of our favorite films from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And we have yet another special returning guest. I'm so excited. Joe Cetta, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great, guys. I'm so excited to be here. Can't even tell you.
Hey,
welcome.
Glad to have you.
Oh,
You're coming back for a big one.
I'm ready to do it. I got notes. I got stacks of material. Oh boy. Oh
We're
boy.
finally doing it. Land Before Time. Let's go.
Here we go.
We're doing all 7 Land Before Time movies right in a row.
I've been up for like the last 40 hours in a row. Just been watching cartoons around the clock.
So the last time you joined us on the show, we were talking about one of your favorite films, Teen Wolf.
Yes.
That was.
Are we going right back into Teen Wolf? So here's the thing about Scott Howard. He wouldn't have made a good Robin, but he might not have been a bad Nightwing. I think that's true.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. But that was a great episode, and we had so much fun there. You joined us again for our 100th episode spectacular, where we looked at Kurt Russell's whole career. And here we are again. We are going to talk about one of the biggest movies of our childhood, really, 1989's Batman.
I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
What are you?
I'm Batman.
Ooh, from Warner Brothers.
From Warner Brothers.
Warner Brothers
You got
/ DC. Oh, Batman starring Michael Keaton and Kim Basinger.
Adam West. Oh no, wrong. Got it.
We didn't get the. That's a disappointing thing. We didn't get the Adam West cameo in this one.
Yeah, we should have had it.
I don't know why he didn't cameo in any of those movies.
You know,
They're trying to move on. It was a darker Batman. Not as dark as he finally got.
Yeah,
They weren't
But,
cheeky
yeah.
back then. They weren't
Even-
cheeky.
I would say Adam West was probably in about similar physical shape to Michael Keaton. I don't think Keaton was an
Probably.
overly jacked dude. Yeah.
No,
Could have worked.
He was slight.
Yeah. Slight.
Before we dive into the movie, though, just a quick announcement. Everybody listening, stay tuned for a special announcement about the show and the status of the show at the end of the episode. So just stay tuned for that.
Don't
Oh
fast
my
forward.
gosh, the cliffhanger.
Like,
Don't
yeah, I
fast
know.
forward.
It's keeping everybody waiting. So, but anyway, let's get back to the year 1989. And probably, we were just talking about this off air, but this has got to be the biggest release of our youth, right? We came in kind of just after Star Wars hit. So the release of Batman was enormous. It had such an enormous cultural impact and just on all of our lives as kids. You guys, how well do you remember that?
Real quick, I remember it big time, and I remember the Batman. My familiarity from Batman was almost exclusively the Adam West show. I mean, I knew, and also you know who Batman is from comic books. Like, of course, I know that, but I wasn't reading comics. And I remember this movie coming out, MTV playing the Prince video and all that stuff, and just the posters, the ads, the trailers, all that stuff. It was just a bombardment, and I was just so psyched to see Batman, and I didn't even know why. I just think this was the greatest thing that's ever coming. Like, that perfect yellow logo with the bat symbol.
Simple.
It's so simple and just gives you everything you need. So yeah, I mean, I was ready to go, but at the time it was just a movie. I was not that. I knew who Bruce Wayne was. I knew all these things. The show taught me everything, but the movie propelled me to the next level.
Oh my God, that's intense. I don't even know how to follow that up. I will agree that it was definitely the summer movie spectacle, probably of my lifetime up to that point. I mean, that wasn't a sequel to Star Wars or to Back to the Future or, whatever. But yeah, this thing was huge when it was about to get released. I mean, the hype surrounding this movie was pretty incredible. I also was, mostly familiar with the TV show, which I absolutely loved as a kid. And, realized that this was not going to have any kind of similarity to that at all with Jack Nicholson involved and Michael Keaton. This was a much different look. Tim Burton's Batman was very different than what the TV show was going to be, but I was excited for it. And I had read a little bit of the comic books at this point. Like, I just started getting into comic books, but this was kind of the first big swing at Batman for me as well.
Yeah, I didn't really have a lot of associations with Batman or with comic books much at all at this point. Scranton didn't have a comic book store until into the 90s, as I recall. Some of the suburbs did, but like nothing right there. So I had to get comic books at grocery stores or just wherever. And I'd grab single issues of stuff, but I had no real familiarity. And then, except for the old Adam West show, but again, it was such a goofy, silly thing that it didn't connect me to a character. But again, it came at just the right time for me. So because there aren't giant, movies aimed at like 10-year-olds from 1988, that like I remember seeing Beetlejuice in theaters, and then I remember the Batman trailer. And the Batman trailer was so incredible and so different and so dark, and like it just stuck with me in such a like visceral way that when Batman opened, this was just a huge deal to me, even though like Last Crusade had just come out. Like, it come out a couple weeks earlier, and you would think, and Last Crusade's great, and you're like, that would have become this thing. But I distinctly remember all I was doing was waiting for Batman to come out.
Yeah, it was just huge, and it was everywhere. And we're going to talk about the marketing of the movie, the impact of that, the impact of the movie itself, of propelling the superhero movie forward, and how to really like make a blueprint for that, and the making of the movie, and where Batman is in the whole history of the Batman franchise. And of course, there's been so many movies, and now there's a new movie coming out, Batman, right? The Batman.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Who's that starring?
The Batman?
The vampire guy.
The vampire guy?
Vampire guy.
I like that guy.
Gary Oldman's playing Batman?
He is. Yeah, it's crazy.
He is too old. Come on.
Tom Cruise is Robin. It's crazy.
Oh. Interview with the Batman. Tom Cruise's Batman.
Well, and that one looks pretty gritty, man. Pretty gritty and pretty dark for sure.
Yeah. So many versions they've gone up and down of being dark, being light, being campy, being, very serious. And of course, with that coming out, we thought it was perfect timing to talk about this, even though many followers of the show would know that we covered Batman Returns before we covered Batman back in year one, which you can dig out in the archives at www.ReconCinemation.com. Also, we talked about Batman a little bit in our coverage of the summer of '89 and the crowded year that was. So here we are back, finally covering the, I guess, first of the Batman movies.
Unconventional.
Yes, that's us.
Yeah.
I'm excited for Batman 66 next year.
Yeah.
A great episode.
We'll do Batman and Robin, then 66, then Batman Forever.
Nice.
But yeah, God, 1989 was such a crowded year for film, and not just the summer, the entire year itself. There were so many big movies, which we discussed back in that episode. But this was kind of to me, this was the number one. This was the biggest one. Probably Last Crusade and Back to the Future 2 would be maybe right behind it. But for me, at least, this was the big movie of that year. How do you guys feel about, where do you think it was 1, 2, 3 for you guys that year?
I mean, Batman. Cool. Well, I remember Last Crusade. I remember just loving that.
Let's leave that in.
I don't know.
Sorry,
yeah,
I don't know. I want to make sure we leave that.
I realized I went to the movies a lot that year. Batman, Last Crusade, Honey, You Shrunk the Kids. I saw that shit. Look Who's Talking. Ghostbusters 2. Saw that. Parenthood. Somehow I was dragged to that. I loved it. Back to the Future 2. Uncle Buck, I might have seen. This was a big year for me. The Abyss came out that year. Oh my
I think
god,
it was
The
a huge
Abyss.
year for everybody.
Jeez.
Like,
Yeah,
I mean, every single one of those movies you mentioned, I definitely also saw
Christmas
at the
Vacation.
theater.
I mean, we talked about
I've never
this, but-
seen Parenthood to this
Yeah,
day. Is it good? I've never
what?
seen it.
Oh,
I
it's
never have.
fine.
I don't know.
Oh, that's
It's
a
really-
whole
it's-
podcast unto itself. That's
Oh.
it's a good one.
The Hood cast. You know, it's a podcast dedicated just to that movie.
Just to Parenthood.
Yeah.
Is that the big
movie and the
reveal at the end of
TV
this episode? We're starting our
We're
Parenthood
starting
podcast.
the Hoodcast.
We're gonna break that movie down. Each episode looks at 1 minute of the movie.
The
Yes.
Parenthood Minute. Yeah.
There you go. The
Oh,
Parenthood Minute.
fantastic.
But yeah, no, this and Indiana Jones that's where I got excited that year.
Yeah.
Well, with Ghostbusters 2, but less so. I had my cartoon. The cartoon held me over, you know. So it was exciting to see Ghostbusters 2 again. But boy, Batman, right? And then Indiana Jones. These were iconic, heroic characters for, you know, a 9-year-old kid. Like it doesn't get better than that in one summer, right?
Well, I mean, and that's a good point, like the comic book aspect of it, right? I mean, up until this point, like comic book movies were not obviously what they are now, where every month and a half a new one comes out. Prior to this, the biggest thing that was happening was Superman. And
Right.
when was the last really good Superman movie leading into this movie?
1980.
Yeah.
Was it?
Don't make me bring up Superman 3 again
Hey.
on the
Oh,
show.
no.
I
Listen.
love Superman 3.
Superman 3
Very
is
good.
rad. Are you kidding? Yeah.
It's insane, but
It is.
Yeah.
It's a Richard Pryor.
It's
movie.
Richard Pryor.
Yeah.
You
Right.
can't beat that. And that
Superman
weird-
appears in a Richard Pryor movie. is what
Correct.
it
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
So no hate for Superman 3, but as far as a strong comic book representation on film, you know, probably
It
not.
had been a while.
Yeah.
Well, before we dive into where Superman sort of leads into this movie, because they're obviously very connected. Let's talk about Batman as a comic book and a character, and the 60s show, and the history of Batman. Now, David, I know you're familiar with comics probably more than the rest of us. Can you kind of guide us through a little bit where Batman stood by this point?
I mean, Batman always had this dark history, you know, but and there were darker storylines happening since the 60s show and all of that. But, you know, there was a lot of camp to it and a lot of fun, but, you know, it was probably 1986. Well, it is 1986, The Dark Knight Returns from Frank Miller, that changed basically everything. And it changed everything about comics in general, but particularly for the Batman character, where suddenly now the darkness was to be embraced because there was so much to mine from that. And and you know, that is an alternate storyline. It's not like canon, as it were, but you know, it's an aging Batman who comes out of retirement after a tragic loss of his Robin, Jason Todd. But he comes out of retirement because there's a criminal element in Gotham City that is continuing to blossom, and he finds no other choice to kind of don the cape and cowl again. But it wasn't just like, I gotta fight crime. There was just so much. There was this dark undertone to everything, and sort of this idea that, like, you know, Superman, like all the other DC characters exist in this little comic, you know, but like, and Superman is sort of a weapon of the government. Like, so Superman's out doing stuff, and that leads to a battle with him at the end, and that created this horrific thing of like, what if Batman fought Superman for the next 30 years?
The debate continues.
It continues.
It does.
So, but it made it a real fascinating thing. Like, how does a human guy named, you know, Bruce Wayne, how does Bruce Wayne kill Superman? That's not the point of the story, but it's like he saw Gotham becoming overrun, and continue partly because of his absence, you know. So, you know, he's like this necessary kind of evil of this thing of, you know, of justice, I think. So it presented Batman in a really dark and gritty take that kids really wouldn't read or appreciate any of the context or subtext to it. And then it exploded. So it kind of led to a more mature telling of Batman as a crime fighter, and, you know, probably mirroring a lot of like Frank Miller and, like, you know, New York City in the 70s and 80s wasn't really great, you know, like
Yeah, no, it definitely mirrored that for sure.
so I think there was this I think he had said that he had lived in New York at the time that he wrote it and all that, and it was he was in the rougher parts, so he wanted to create like a Gotham City, that criminal, that making it just sort of a an element out of control. So this changed how comic readers saw Batman and how writers and artists, depicted superheroes in general, and it kind of bled into where this movie kind of, I think, goes. I don't think you have Tim Burton's Batman without The Dark Knight Returns.
Absolutely. 100%. And Batman had been around for like 50 years, at this point. It debuted in May 1939. Was kind of a co-creation by Bob Kane and Bill Finger. Bill Finger, of course, didn't really get credit till much later on. At this point, it was only Bob Kane's name who was on everything, but then was around for so long. And then the 60s TV show came along and completely sort of changed the direction of Batman. And it became this camp comedy kind of figure that was not really what it was intended to be, but that's how mass audiences perceived it. And then that's sort of what people thought of for Batman for 20 years, even though the comics were still had a darker edge. And definitely, like you were just talking about, David, through the 80s, there was the Killing Joke, there was the killing of Jason Todd as the second Robin, and then the Dark Knight Returns, which gave everything such a different, darker tone, all of which really kind of led to the creation of this movie. So all the while the history of Batman is kind of progressing along, in the late 70s comes along Superman the movie, which was another movie hopefully one day we'll cover on this show.
Yes, if I have anything to say about
fingers
it,
crossed, guys.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll get there.
That's like one of the first movies that I ever saw. I mean, we've talked about this before, but Blade Runner's technically the first movie I remember seeing, but Superman the movie is right.
Wait a minute. Wait.
Yep.
You saw in theaters or you saw at all?
No, at home on Betamax.
You see a Care Bears movie.
Yeah, I think I saw like the Fox
Blade Runner.
Like
I only
for the kids.
Show the kid Blade Runner, for Christ's sake.
Put Blade Runner on.
It was on the same tape as Star Wars, and for some reason, like, I always saw the ending of Blade Runner, and then I was just like, what is this movie? So I rewound it and watched it. I'm like, whoa, like Han Solo's doing some different stuff in that movie.
Han Solo's crazy.
Wait, then the Star Wars would be your number one, your first movie.
Well, yeah, they're all right around the same.
It's all the
time,
same thing.
Yeah. All the movies I had on Betamax were all like I watched all around the same time. So Superman being one of them.
That's
excellent. Oh, I mean, you can't beat the Dick Donner Superman.
No.
Yeah,
it was also one of my favorites as a kid. I think I saw that movie 100 times.
100 times.
Yeah, and that's really the movie. I mean, Batman sort of solidifies it, but Superman is the first movie that really, that the first comic book movie. It's the movie that took things out of the comic books and into mass audiences where families and parents, at that point, like, parents didn't read comic books for the most part. Comics were considered just strictly a kid's thing. So now you've got families going to see it, and that was an enormous movie directed by Richard Donner, who we lost last year and we've spoken about a couple of times, and that was just huge. I mean, and that was really, that film lays out how to do an origin story, how to do the superhero, the formula for it,
and nobody could get it right again ever until Marvel.
Not even the rest of the Superman movies could get it right.
But... No, they couldn't. It's unreal.
But you have to remember, like, comic books were a medium that were extremely popular in the 30s and 40s, as a pulp magazine, and everyone read comics all the time. It wasn't until you got into the 60s where superhero comics started to become a resurgence, where, like, comics were now sort of focused on kids and superheroes and kids as readers. But then that's when you got your Comics Code Authority. Well, the Comics Code Authority came before that, right? Because there was true crime stories, there was horror stories, sci-fi, like crazy sci-fi stuff. So like comics were it's a changing medium. Like every decade of comics is very different. If you kind of go, every decade, at a time. So yeah, at the time when Superman's coming out in the late 70s, this was comics that sort of died out as sort of a mainstream medium in a lot of ways. And yeah, you can get them on the spinner rack in the grocery store, and all of that. But it's a very different thing than it is, clearly today. So yeah, the Comics Code Authority, sort of, it kind of wiped out the artistry of comics for a long time, for 30 years, and changed like what was being consumed. And then kids were the ones that kind of picked up the slack, because adults were reading comics like they would read magazines, because it was a lot of romance comics and like I said, romance, true crime, horror, sci-fi, stuff like that. So it was a weird time at that moment. And
I think I always assumed that there weren't comic book movies before Superman because the effects weren't there. But that actually is a different argument that actually makes more sense, is that it was such a children's medium and it would require so much budget and stuff. And then again, like, there weren't Hollywood blockbuster type summer movies until you got into the 70s anyway. That actually the reason. I guess I just always assumed it was effects more than anything else. How realistically could you make a Superman movie in the early 70s or in the 60s,
It's probably a combo of both, really. I mean, that's definitely part of it.
Yeah. Because like the old Superman TV show, the effects are nonsense. So like you can't make that as a movie. So then
it's like Flash Gordon,
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And like him just springing out the window and then it's just him hanging. Like that's nothing. So, so do you
still
want
pretty
that as a
awesome
movie?
though.
I was buying it.
George Reeves was fun. Yeah. That was a real fun show.
It was awesome.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it was definitely helped out by the grainy black and white, when I was watching it. But yeah, I used to love that show as well.
And you got to think too, like these movies back then, like we're getting at the cusp of what's really going to make a lot of money. Like Hollywood was it was still an artistic medium up until about 1980, in a sense that like it's not about like how can we make a franchise and $100 million that quickly. Like you want to turn a profit, you want to make a lot of movies, you want that the output. But it wasn't like it is today, where it's like what can you put on the poster and how do you make a three movie franchise out of it and all of that, as far as comic book, but like Spider-Man had a TV show, Superman had countless TV shows, they did animated shows for kids, like
Incredible Hulk
had a show,
the Wonder Woman show,
Wonder Woman, I mean, so superheroes were around, and they weren't exclusively for kids in a sense, but I think it's the comics themselves were almost deemed that it was for kids and out, the nerdy indoor people.
It blows me away. That Batman TV show was like a primetime TV show. When I was watching it, it was, morning, early afternoon, like on the kids' reel, on whatever channel I was watching. But you go back and you do a little research, and that was a primetime TV show meant for all audiences. And
like the Flintstones or the Jetsons.
Exactly.
Right.
Thinking of the Flintstones as an evening show is so strange. Like,
Well, like the Simpsons is now.
Yeah.
To the Batmobile. This could be the break we've been looking for.
But anyway. How long did Batman go? Did it go 1 year or 3 years? I can't remember.
3 years, I think
it was 3 seasons, or like 2.5.
But it was, filled with guest stars and Vincent Price and, as, who is he? The oh God, I can't remember which one he was.
Egghead? Was he Egghead?
Was he Egghead?
I don't remember who. I think it was Vincent Price, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It could be.
Or Bookworm or
Bookworm.
Yeah. He played Egghead. Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
But like Otto Preminger played King Tut. Like, it was a crazy cast.
What was it? It was Burgess Meredith who played Penguin, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cesar Romero was the Joker, and
Frank Gorshin.
Yep, Frank Gorshin, the Riddler, and multiple Catwomen.
Yeah, I was gonna say but there are 120 episodes over 3 seasons for Batman.
They were long seasons.
Yeah, exactly.
Has anyone here been to the mansion that was the exterior of the Wayne Manor of that show?
No,
I have.
Is that out there?
I have, and I've seen the interior,
exist?
and it is trash. It is garbage. It is not a comfortable place to be. It's anyway.
Is it an insult to the Wayne family?
No, it's just like it's just rich. It's like a rich building, that was built like with like everything needs to be gaudy and like cold and
Opulent
gross.
and just
Yeah,
like,
nice.
ugh, you're like, okay.
like this is a garbage place. The outside looks cool. Anyway, no offense to the people that own it, but I'm not going back there, and they're not listening to this podcast.
They shouldn't have invited you to that wedding reception.
Yeah, why'd they bring me there?
Bunch of
Shitting
jerks.
all over the inside of the mansion.
Did you find the
this
bat
trash heap.
hole to the bat cave? That's the most
Couldn't
important.
find it. I was knocking on.
Well, of course
doors.
it's
I was
garbage then.
flipping
Jerks.
statues.
Flipping the
Yeah, dude.
statue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Flipping the head up on a bust.
What a waste. He broke so many busts that day.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's why I'm
Not
not
here.
invited back.
Yeah.
Anywho,
Do you do the bat dance there?
every day,
Yeah.
all the time.
Okay.
There and
The
everywhere
bat
else.
tusi.
Yeah, the Batusi.
You
Yeah.
got to do the bat tusi and the bat dance.
Yeah.
They
So
made-
bat dance is later, I guess, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was bat tusi's earlier in the day. Bat
Yeah.
dance was later.
Forgive me for confusing the Batman dance maneuvers.
There's many Batman related
Unforgivable.
Mhm.
But yeah, so we've got the show that is so campy and I love it. I mean, I love that show. It's just in a whole different way than I love the rest of the Batman movies. But the Batman 1966 movie is fantastic for so many reasons. I mean, the bat shark repellent, the running around trying to get rid of the bomb, like there's
Climbing up the side of the building.
climbing,
like,
yeah. Like,
Classic.
All classic.
but it kind of tainted Batman as a character for so long that was what the majority of the public thought of when they thought of Batman. So even though the comics are serious, and I remember my first, I think, like interaction with Batman as a character was probably two things. Number one, it was either probably Super Friends, but I also had like a handful of Batman comic books, and one was like the cover was him in some kind of protective suit, like charging through the streets of Gotham that were covered in acid, like up to your knees in acid, and there's like skeletons and stuff. I'm like, whoa, this is Batman too. Okay,
Nice.
Did you guys ever? Sorry to interrupt. Did you guys ever have there were these like books that came with like a cassette tape accompaniment that would be like the narrator, and you'd have this book and you would like follow along in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was how I got introduced to Batman originally. Was I had the Batman and Robin book of that with the cassette, and it was like how Dick Grayson came about to be Robin and all that stuff.
Oh,
And that
nice.
was kind of like my intro into Batman, and then it was the TV series.
Yeah.
But they both were like kind of thematically could be related, in a way. So yeah, my expectation of what Batman was leading up until I got a little bit older was always that kind of like goofy,
Yeah.
sort of campy.
I mean, he's on Scooby Doo, right? Wasn't
Right.
Batman?
yeah.
Yeah, Batman and Robin were on,
Yeah.
on Scooby.
Voiced by Adam West, I think.
Yeah,
Is that right?
Yeah, him and Berth Ward, I think both did it.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. But they're and it's really funny because it is influential, like the Adam West Batman, that show. Like you have to, if you think about like that show and having watched it, and like there's always a fight with the goons and all that, and then if you think about like Christopher Nolan's like third movie where Bruce Wayne is Batman, I think 20 minutes of it, like there's like this shorthand of like, Batman is as good as he is. He always beats them. Like you don't need to show the fight scenes all the time. I think it kind of relies on the idea of the 60s campy show, and like what you saw, kind of what he's doing in 89 and Batman Returns, like that. There was like later instances of like Batman's just so good. He's always just beating up bad guys. You don't even really need to depict it anymore.
Right. But you need that forum so that you can see the different bat gadgets, right? Because he's always been clever, and he always has like technology and things like that. It's a little bit like James Bond, right? Like some of the excitement about watching James Bond is being able to see what new kind of like clever gadgets he's going to bring into the field, right? And so I think with a lot of these battles that you get with Batman, it's so that you can highlight things like the Batmobile and the Batwing and the like the little bat grappling hook and whatever else he's bringing to the party.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think it's a nice excuse for the Tim Burton movies, if you take that logic, just because the fight scenes are so nothing. Where Batman literally just punches guys and that's it, and
flings
like
his
nothing.
cape around and
The
Yeah.
big fight at the end, he literally doesn't do anything to the first two guys. They just solve themselves. Like I think that was, I always assumed that was a Burton problem, but that logic also is kind of fun. Like you don't need to see Batman beating people up.
well, and I think that costume looked like it was pretty hard to move around in.
Right.
The fact
A
that
little
he
bit.
couldn't move
I'd
his
be
neck.
agile in that thing.
Yeah.
I remember being a kid. I'm like, oh, Batman can't move his neck. Like I realized that.
like,
Like,
Can't turn.
Yeah.
It's
Can't
like
parallel park.
it's like me in my old age now.
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Move at the hips. That's all it is.
But I think with a character like Batman, who's 80, 90 years old or whatever the hell he is at this point,
Sure.
like there is a shorthand to like what you're gonna see. So it is like what is this new Batman movie gonna be with Robert Pattinson? Are we gonna see his parents die? Like I don't think we are, but maybe and if they do it, maybe for like a minute, because if you spend 30 minutes on it, you're wasting your time.
Well, the movie is 3 hours long. They got to put something in.
Oh God,
What
3
is
hours.
going on?
This is going to be interesting for
So
sure.
long.
Like
We've seen all these characters' origin stories so much between Batman and Superman and Spider-Man that there's been so many relaunches that I mean, we don't need an origin movie every 4 or 5 years. Like we're still good. Like I'm still good with the Tobey Maguire like origin story. I don't need it again. But,
yeah.
We don't need to keep killing Uncle Ben. It's fine.
yeah, come on, give him, let him rest.
Yeah.
No, just Aunt May.
Yeah.
Oh, Aunt May.
Poor Aunt May.
Spoiler alert.
Oh,
If you haven't seen it yet, that's not my fault.
It's been out for months, guys.
get out to the theaters,
Get
guys.
to the theater. Aunt May's
That's
dead.
where all the COVID is. Get out there.
Get your COVID, yeah.
So
I survived Spider-Man.
See Aunt May die. Get your COVID here.
I saw it at a drive-in just a
Oh,
couple of weeks ago. So
How much fun is that?
it
You
was
West
great.
Coast motherfuckers.
It was great.
fun.
Anyway, though, back to Batman, and circling back even to Superman. So Superman the movie comes out, huge hit, follows right up with Superman 2, also technically directed by Richard Donner, really, but he was not credited. There was a whole dispute, which is a podcast on its own.
We've mentioned it before.
Yeah, I love Superman 2. Big fan. I think we all are, right? I mean, that's
Absolutely, yeah.
another great sequel. Follows right in line with the first one, but obviously with the split with Richard Donner, you've got a big creative kind of separation. And then we get to Superman 3, which is a special movie for you,
Nothing but
right?
brilliant.
Wall-to-wall genius Superman 3.
Yeah.
It's a Richard Pryor movie guest starring Superman.
And Bizarro Superman. Are you
Yeah.
kidding?
Yeah.
It introduces Bizarro Superman. It's
Oh,
awesome.
Yeah.
And there's some like weird, like terrifying, like
Robot thing.
robot lady that gets
Yeah.
made in this
Yeah.
contraption.
Yeah.
That thing was terrifying.
there's rooftop skiing, and
Yeah.
there's way too much
Jeez.
potato salad. Like there's all sorts of stuff in that movie. Just
It's way
so
too much
wacky.
potato salad.
It
It's
is.
so
It's
wacky.
it's a wacky movie, and it goes. The whole franchise is like, huh? We're going in what direction now? And and then you get, as if that wasn't bad enough, you get Superman 4.
All right,
The
so that's
Quest for
garbage.
Peace.
Yeah.
Oh.
Which is as we talked about on our look back at the rise and fall of canon films, that is a canon project. So
Yeah.
yikes.
Not
How does
good.
it go? How does it go from that? From where? How does it become a canon film?
Well,
That's-
so I think with the kind of decline in revenue from the Superman franchise, they sold off the rights for the movie to Canon, who we know what Canon Films did with their movies. They just did whatever they wanted. A lot didn't make sense. So they cut the budget way down for what it should have been, and really kind of cut the movie off at its knees and killed the Superman franchise right there in 1987.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Isn't that
Yeah.
wild to think in 2022, whatever year we are, like that, like these comic book properties are just thought of as nothingness and thrown around and sold to whoever. And it's just like, and like that we've been seeing in the last 15, 20 years of the studios and the rights of things. And it's just sort of, Oh yeah, we probably should have hung on to that because look how much money they actually make. It's
Well,
kind of
they're a
bummer.
built-in audience. I mean, for kids and now for adults. I mean, everybody sees those movies really at one point or another, and they finally figured out how to do them properly for the most part.
Yeah.
There are some
Well, I mean,
misses still,
Marvel
but
Marvel did for the
Sure.
most part, for sure. I think there's still a lot of misses in other other
Yeah.
areas, but
Yeah.
Marvel nailed it better than anybody has or probably will be able to do again. It's
Yeah.
pretty impressive what they were able to do with that entire storyline. So yeah, and
So
they keep doing it.
yeah, they
Spider-Man
do.
was red.
Yep. So the what's happening in the Superman franchise through the 80s is kind of directly affecting what's going to be happening with Batman as well, because in October 1979, pretty much right after the first Superman movie is out, the rights are purchased, and it's being developed as a vehicle for Guy Hamilton and Richard Maybaum, who we have discussed briefly in our James Bond franchise podcasts. They were the Guy Hamilton directed 3 or 4. I can't remember. I think it was at least 3 Bond movies. And Richard Maybaum was like one of the main writers of the original Bond movies. So they were going to take a shot at developing Batman as a property. John Peters and Peter Guber, the big time producers, joined the project in November of '79. And they start pitching it around town. They pitch it at Universal. Universal passes on it, but Warner Brothers snatches it up because they've already got a successful Superman franchise going. So why not go with, I guess, what at the time was probably the number 2 DC character with Batman. So, and then it's kind of stuck in development for years. Tom Mankiewicz wrote an origin story in 1983. It was focused on Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson and the development of their characters. They had wanted so many names got pitched, and I don't know how many were actually offered, but so many names were pitched as Batman. At one point, they wanted an unknown actor as Batman. William Holden, Peter O'Toole, David Niven were going to all star in it. So, I mean, that's kind of an all star British cast. I kind of would have been down for that.
Yeah, it would have been cool at least with all of these old warhorse like legends from the 50s and 60s, but playing. I think because they were supposed to play like Alfred and Commissioner Gordon. And, it's 80-year-old William Holden wasn't playing Batman. Right? It wasn't that project.
that would be like Kingdom Come. That would
right. Right.
But Holden was Commissioner Gordon, and Peter O'Toole was I think Penguin, and David Niven was going to be Alfred.
Oh.
Was what
cool.
I remember seeing. Interesting choice.
I think some of the near missed casting, those oddball movie versions they were going to do are kind of fun. Like, as much as I'm glad they got to 89, the crazy Ivan Reitman Batman would have been amazing. Like, I still wish that they had just made it and just never released it, and we could find it on YouTube or something, because it sounds insane. Like.
So the Ivan Reitman pitch. So he comes in. I'm assuming it's right after Ghostbusters. So maybe
I think so. It must be. Yeah.
It's got to be 84, 85. Bill Murray as Batman and Eddie Murphy as Robin.
Right.
How does that not work?
Sign me up immediately.
Oh my God. Everyone would have gone to see that movie. So
they could do that now.
I mean, it would be ridiculous, but
right. That's what I mean. Coming from the 60s Batman, figure that makes sense that this is something they could have made. And I just, when I read that existed, I was like, that almost happened. I was like, oh man, I wish we could have got that.
It's insane. Yeah. It's insane. And it just goes on and on. I think Murray kept being pitched as Batman over the next couple of years, but Wes Craven is attached to direct at one point. Joe Dante is attached to direct at one point. That would have been really cool.
Yeah.
Interesting take on it.
I do wonder if the Murray thing could have also been at that era where he didn't really make any movies. So I wonder if his name, if he had just said he wanted to do it, we could have just got that movie. But between Ghostbusters and like Scrooged, he didn't do anything. So that's that big window of time right when we're talking about. So
that 4-year hiatus that I could definitely see his. I know he had like really kind of stepped back from everything. I don't know how much he was really getting involved. Maybe his people were, but
Right.
yeah, that would have. Again, I would have been really excited for that. I don't know how well that would have turned out. Like thinking about it, but
In the long term, it would have been bad.
Yeah.
But as a one-off, it would have been amazing.
it's
Yeah,
it's
it would-
hard
it
to.
would-
s-
It
Go
would
ahead,
be
Brent.
interesting to see if that had happened, what it would have done to Batman moving forward, right?
Right.
Because I mean, like you look at '89, and the absence of Robin, I think, has totally affected Robin in the movie's sense, right? Like, I mean, because
Right.
that movie showed that you didn't even really need Robin in there. Like Batman could stand on his own. So, like, if you did come on and approach it with the Bill Murray character, like it could have had incredibly long-lasting effects on where the cinematic version of the character went.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the thing is with the comics at that time, because Robin had just died, this is the only real era where you have Batman without Robin, if I remember correctly. So like that's kind of even why when the movie gets made when it does, the fact that it affects everything down the road, it almost had to have happened right when it did for this to even be the case.
Right.
Yeah, at this point in the comics, so Dick Grayson has sort of left Batman and he's become Nightwing.
Right.
Jason Todd comes in as Batman or as Robin and is like the least liked character in comic book history at this point, to the point where it wasn't it's something that there was a poll done. DC did a poll.
You
where
could I think you could call in or something,
Yeah.
couldn't you?
You
you
vote.
could call
And
in and vote what you wanted to have happen to him, and the fans voted to kill him off. And
they did it.
and in a really violent way. Like the
Yeah.
Joker basically like corners him in a house, beats him almost to death, and then blows him up in the house. It's like he's
Yeah.
dead.
Yeah,
for
it's
sure.
brutal.
Yeah.
Of course, 30 years later he's back. But
He's the Red Hood. He
Yeah,
takes
But
on the
fan
Joker.
service, gotta
He takes-
appease the fan base.
He takes on Joker's old persona as the Red Hood.
Yeah.
From, the Golden Age.
right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so at this point, Tim Burton has come around while all this is being developed and releases Pee-wee's Big Adventure, which I'm just going to guess that all of us are big fans of that film.
Sure.
Loved it.
So much to love there. But obviously, like a fresh, a fresh eye and a fresh visual style in American cinema, and follows that up with Beetlejuice, right? Was his next film, which I was a huge fan. I'm still a huge fan of Beetlejuice. I think it's an amazing movie. It's such a quirky story, and the cast is fantastic. Again, his visual style is just progressing and progressing. And I think he's hired in 1986, so that would have been right before Beetlejuice comes out. I think he signs to direct Batman, but again, it's still in development, so not even close to being ready. He did a big rewrite on the script and removed the Dick Grayson and the Penguin storylines that were there. So it's kind of just whittling down to Batman, his origin story, and the Joker. He hires Sam Hamm to really get into the origin, who then adds the Vicky Vale and Carl Grissom characters, all of which were based on previous characters, but sort of took a new take on them. And then after Beetlejuice comes out and is a success, then they really get into pre-production in early 1988. Now, we talked a little bit about some actors that were attached through the 80s, but now that this is really in motion, everybody's being named as Batman. You've got Mel Gibson, Kevin Costner, Charlie Sheen, Tom Selleck, still Bill Murray's floating around, Harrison Ford, Dennis Quaid, Willem Dafoe. And there was a rumor, and it would make sense, that Willem Dafoe was being pitched as the Joker, but it was actually at the time Batman. So, or Bruce Wayne. But God, I mean, look at those names. And of course, I'm sure we could have seen our dear friend Kurt Russell as Bruce Wayne for sure.
How are you gonna
could've
fit
worked.
that hair under the cowl? I don't think so.
Well, that's your problem. That's probably what
He's
what broke the
just
deal. apart.
flows out from underneath the cowl. You're like, I don't.
He's like, we're gonna cut a hole around the top, so I'll have the ears, but the hair can come out,
Hair
right?
comes out. He looks like Batgirl.
He looks.
Yep.
But I mean, any of those guys, I guess I could see them all. I mean, I could really see all of them as Bruce Wayne and Batman. I don't know how well it would work, but
It works as just as good as Michael Keaton. And
Yeah.
and then I'm not saying that in a bad way about Michael Keaton, but if you're gonna pick someone to be Bruce Wayne / Batman, is Michael Keaton your first pick, your
No.
second, or your
Yeah,
third,
it seems like an
or your
off
fourth?
pick. I like him having
I like it.
now, but like it definitely seems like a stretch.
Well,
I think for the time.
especially coming on the heels of what Michael Keaton had just
Right.
done. Like that's
Right.
really the
Right.
problem. Is that now you can think of Michael Keaton as this like great actor because he's done decades of like alternating between comedy and heavy
Yes.
stuff. But at
Yeah.
that point, you really just had Clean and Sober, and then you had Mr. Mom and Beetlejuice and Night Shift. Like there
And
wasn't that much.
don't forget the Dream Team. Don't forget
What?
that one.
I love the Dream Team.
I mean,
Love that.
Had he done Gung Ho yet?
Oh yeah.
Gung Ho,
Mr.
and
Mom and all that. You
Squeeze
said
and-
Mr.
yeah.
Mom? Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, he was mostly just comedies, but then I think like Clean and Sober is the only real serious thing he has up to that point, and like, he's weighty in it. It's not an action movie or anything, but you can see that there's some gravity to what he's doing. But I mean, I can understand why the blowback was what it was in '88. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the Burton obviously had the relationship with him and really, stuck to his guns with really pushing Keaton as Batman, and Warner Brothers eventually agreed to it, and but yeah, as soon as that announcement was made, I don't think fans were wild about either choice, Burton as director and Keaton as Batman. It's like, what are we doing here? Well, what else do you have, guys? Let's give it a shot. So
Yeah.
Well, then they bring in Nicholson, and I think everybody was pretty jazzed about that casting.
That fixed stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and Jack Nicholson, who we haven't really talked a lot about on this show, but was such a huge, one of the biggest stars of the 70s and 80s. By the mid 90s, he had started to kind of wind it down a little bit, was still acting for sure through like 2007 or 8, I believe. But he was kind of attached to the movie almost since the beginning, that he was always circling it. His name was continued to like be, in the running for the Joker, really, long before they really nailed in a lead for Batman. But others were thrown around. Tim Curry, David Bowie, John Lithgow auditioned. John Glover, Brad Dourif, Ray Liotta, James Woods, Robin Williams. All these people either auditioned or were pitched as the Joker, which, think of the pairings we just talked about as Batman and these guys as the Joker. Like, so many combinations would have worked like amazingly well.
Murray and Lithgow that's my top. That's my top too.
Murray and James Woods. That's your.
Lithgow as the Joker, man.
That'd be pretty good. I wasn't.
I
being
love
sarcastic.
Lithgow. Yeah,
I'm like a Lithgow's a great Joker.
Well,
so.
and
He's got
Lithgow, I don't think at the time fully understood the scope of the movie and ended up sort of talking them out of casting him, and then years later regretted it. But
No, really, yeah.
Ultimately, I think Jack Nicholson is the perfect casting for that role. Like, and at the time, I think Robin Williams would have been perfect for like the Riddler or something like that. But
See, I've always thought that the Robin Williams story about this, where he really wanted to play the Joker, points too much to the idea that they were trying, like, people thought of the Joker as a comic character, right? Mm-hmm. And because Robin Williams also hadn't really done a ton of serious stuff by '89, that like it just kind of wouldn't have worked. Even though, again, Robin Williams was a great actor, but it wasn't until later that anybody really realized that, So I think his Joker would have been interesting, but again, like, then if you have Michael Keaton and Robin Williams, like, no one's gonna buy that,
as a serious movie,
right?
Yeah.
Well, like, and if you look at, I don't know, is Cesar Romero straight up comic? Like, that's a powerhouse actor right there, like giving you a Joker, right? Like, from
he was a serious actor,
well, exactly. So he's like a real guy, and then like obviously the show. All of those actors in that show were serious actors, right? So they're
and so Burgess Meredith wasn't known for his comedic chops.
Yeah,
No.
but so
but if you watch Cesar Romero in that show, like his performance, sorry to interrupt, David, is like it's got some bite to it. Like,
he's
there's
like
darkness. There's darkness behind the delivery of a lot of the lines that he's giving. So yeah, the show is super campy, but like if you really like study him, there's venom there, and it's like, wow, okay, this guy's like seething, and
That's
it's,
why
it's really impressive.
And Nicholson's sort of an extension of that. It is.
Yeah.
I think 89 Batman 89 is a translation of taking it from the 60s through what you're seeing in the comics in the 80s, and then adding that twist and then darkening in the whole thing.
Right.
It's like you couldn't. It really is a transitionary or
transitory
kind of thing. Like
it's kind of a perfect
Yeah.
evolution to get us to where Batman is now. I don't think you could have gone from the 60s version to even Chris Nolan's version and had that, that's such a severe departure, but I think what you said, David, is exactly right. Like, it's a nice kind of evolution. It's a step in that direction where it's still like holding on to some of the roots of what people recognized, but it is moving more towards that Dark Knight kind of, darker themes and more grit and, all those type of things that it's continued to grow towards and still does. And, again, I think this one with Robert Pattinson's supposed to be just,
I'm gonna watch the hell out of that.
super intense.
I don't give a shit. I'm all over that. Him and Catwoman in tuxedos and ball gowns and dancing. I'm sure, like every time. Like, I
mean, we'll see.
Gimme, come on, more.
We'll find out in a few weeks.
I like Pattinson. I mean, the guy's got. I mean, like, you take the. I mean, I'm not a Twilight fan or any of that stuff, but like The Lighthouse and all that. Like,
he's a good actor.
He does some incredible stuff.
If I didn't know who that guy was, like if I didn't know he was in Twilight movies, I'd be like, that guy looks pretty cool as Batman. Like that dude's awesome.
Am I really the only one who kind of gets like the Spider-Man 3 vibe from the new Batman movie? Like, that's just me? Because like he looks just like this emo-y Batman, and then like, it's like way too gritty, and like the whole movie's one color. And I don't know. That just doesn't do it. The trailer doesn't do it for me.
I've blocked Spider-Man 3 so far out of my head. I can't. Even after even after the latest Spider, I can't remember. I mean, they had characters come back. I just can't remember anything about Spider-Man.
I haven't seen 3 in a while,
except the dance sequence, and I was like,
the meme.
That's
but that's the vibe I get from the new Batman. I'm hesitant. Like, if the reviews are good, but I'm not like excited. That trailer doesn't do it for me. It's a little too much.
There is a sketch that it turns out it's a college humor sketch or something like that, and with not Pete Davidson, but it's about Batman, and he's just inept and he's terrible at his job, and it's called Bad Man. Like, he's just bad at everything. But they sort of integrate like the Nolan grittiness, and so they introduce a Riddler character, and he's gritty, and he's got a gun to Rachel's head, and Batman's so stupid he can't solve the riddles right in front of him. And in his answer it was it's just the answer to this riddle is justice and all that. It's really funny. I'll send you the link. We'll post. Nice. But that's literally in the trailer for this new Batman movie where the Riddler is dark.
That's funny.
He's the Zodiac killer.
Batman's saying the answer to the Riddler's justice. I'm like, oh my god, it's self-parody.
That's hilarious. And I have not seen that college humor skit. So
it's Pete Holmes, actually. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Pete Holmes plays Batman, and it's hysterical. It's nice. Just, but
that's funny.
That's what this one is. The answer to the Riddler's justice. Oh my god. You gotta be kidding.
I mean, the new Batman could be total garbage.
Oh, it might be, but I'm in.
Yeah. The trailer just has me concerned. But Matt Reeves is directing it. Yeah, who's really good. So I'm excited to see what he does. But
gimme.
That trailer and the fact that it's 3 hours long.
The 3 hours is a little problematic.
Yeah.
I don't
that
think
worries
movies
me a little
need
bit.
to be that long.
I'll catch it
not
on
a first
HBO
one,
Max.
not the first movie. We're gonna restart Batman. Let's make it.
I feel like we left those in the 90s, or Avatar was people I don't need to sit in a movie this long. It just.
I think make it a tight 82 minutes.
Oh, love it. Oh my god.
2 episodes.
I'm cool for 90. I'm cool for 90 or 120, but
I'm always excited when you see a 93-minute movie. Just the best. How long is this?
Cool. I'm in. I'm out.
Minutes?
Let's go.
Love it. Oh my god.
I'm gonna watch it twice.
The Venom sequel is about 95 minutes apparently.
Perfect.
Oh, cool.
And it's dumb and wonderful. The Venom.
Did you watch it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's bad. And
it's so dumb.
It's
those
so
Venom
dumb.
movies are dumb, but
love it.
it's a lot of fun.
It's so stupid.
Yeah.
Anyway, Batman.
Oh, Jack Nicholson.
Jack Nicholson, great, but really, outlines who that character is for the next. I think again he's the evolution of Cesar Romero and takes it to the next level. And for everyone after,
Yeah, and I feel like it was The Witches of Eastwick that really cemented that. Him being cast, that he could do that kind of angle. So
I was kind of gonna say, because like you look at Nicholson's 80s, he's doing really like either really idiosyncratic characters or real heavy characters. Like it's like Reds or like Terms of Endearment's light, Pritzi's Honor's light, but he's doing Ironweed and Heartburn, and these aren't like even like Cuckoo's Nest style characters. These are like heavy characters.
Yeah, the postman always rings twice. Like,
right. So then when you get to Witches of Eastwick, which is like 87, and he's so wild and so over the top, you're like, well, that's the Joker. I can see that as the Joker.
Right. Yeah. So he makes his deal after that, and it's one of those famous Hollywood sweet deals.
Wait till they get a load of me.
That he got, he got top billing, just like Marlon Brando did over Christopher Reeves. He gets top billing. He gets to dictate his own work hours. He gets days off for Laker home games. He cuts his fee down to about $6 million, but he's going to get he's going to get percentage of the gross and the merchandise.
Oh my God!
I mean, it's just. Like, it's a genius move, and obviously, like, he was thinking ahead and seeing what, Star Wars is doing and what Roger Rabbit probably just did with the marketing and the toys and everything that's coming. So, a great move. He could have absolutely retired after Batman and not had to worry about a thing, but...
Thank God he didn't. We got Man Trouble.
And the bucket list.
Anger management.
Oh, Nicholson.
Oh man,
I like The Departed. I don't care what all of you say. The Departed's awesome.
Departed's great.
I love The Departed.
Departed's great.
Oh, John and Brent are not fans.
Oh, really?
That's not true. That's not true at all.
You guys have both sort of said like that you've kind of not had a positive.
No,
Scorsese's The Departed? No.
Love The Departed.
Both of you. Oh, okay, all right.
I used to have literally like an 8-foot poster of The Departed hanging up in my house.
8
Nice.
That big motion movie theater poster. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Love that. Love that movie.
Who else? So David, who else is in this movie? This is your favorite part of the show. Where
Here we go.
All the actors.
There's nobody is in this movie.
Well,
Who's
you know who wasn't in this movie? It was Sean Young. Was originally cast as Vicky Vale, but was injured. And I think a horse riding accident broke her arm. Was replaced by Kim Basinger, who was.
Ooh.
Was this really her? I'm trying to remember back. Was this really her first like huge movie? She'd been around all through the 80s.
She was in the James Bond movie.
Never Say Never Again.
I mean, I'm not saying it's a huge movie, but it was still a James Bond movie.
It's a quote unquote Bond movie.
Right.
Yeah.
She's a few years off from LA Confidential as well.
But like that's about it. I mean, she was in stuff, but
she was in.
That's her first. She was in Nadine and
Nadine. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Blind Date.
Blind Date. Yep.
Yeah.
But this was really like now she's an A-list star after this movie.
Yeah.
She's really good in this, by the way.
She is.
What she has to do.
Her first scene with Robert Wool, she fucking kills it. Her and Robert Wool, I want to watch the two of them like hang out.
That's a spin-off like sitcom right there.
It should have just been the two of them like breaking news stories. That'd be fun.
Yeah, that's what Arliss should have been. Could have had it.
I've never seen an episode of Arliss, and I know everyone thinks it's the worst. I'm curious. Like
I remember seeing it at the time and not thinking.
I watched half of one episode, and that was it.
He's like a Hollywood agent, is that right? Or
Sports agent.
Oh, sports agent, even worse. Oh, so wait, that's the Rock's show. Isn't the Rock on a show?
Bounders?
Ballers. Ballers is
Did
the
you say
spiritual sequel
Bounders?
to
Yeah, I have no idea. I don't watch TV.
Bounders.
Shooting from the hip. I like
That's
it.
the British version. It's called Bounders.
It's Bounders.
Yeah. And instead of the rock, it's just like the stone because that's the weight measurement.
The stone is.
It's a terrible joke.
Bounders.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. All right. Anyway.
Robert Wool's character. Why I just blanked on his name.
Alexander Knox.
Alexander Knox. Do we ever see Alexander Knox or Vicky Vale? Vicky Vale, I think, is in one of the video games, on one of the PS4 games, but I don't think we see Alexander Knox like ever again in any version, which was weird.
The only thing I can point out because I did watch this, is the Crisis on Infinite Earth crossover that they did on the CW, and
Hell yeah.
and Robert Wall does show up as Knox on that show.
Oh wow,
Is that
that's
right?
awesome.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
cool.
They bring in characters from all sorts of different things, and he pops up in there. So
That's
it's
cool.
I mean, the whole CW universe is kind of a mess, but like that crossover is really fun.
Oh,
Yeah.
neat. I did I tell you to do that? I may have.
I was still watching. I think I was still watching The Flash at that point.
Oh,
so I think
that was
I just
great.
yeah.
I was a big fan. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like Vicky Vale is a character from the comics from decades before, right? I don't even
Was
know.
she?
I don't think she was. I thought she was.
She was.
Was
She's
Okay.
she's a Batman character. I don't know how intense, in there,
Yeah.
but they were pulling at least for some of the source material. Like,
Yeah.
I know that like the original female character was supposed to be Silver St. Cloud, right? Who was like a Batman character, but I didn't know if Vicky Vale was a character or not, honestly.
oh, she debuted
From back in the day?
Debuted in 1948. So,
Oh wow. Oh.
she was a redhead.
So she was a
And,
newer character, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
They just created her for the movie.
Yeah.
But this movie is so funny because it's like, oh, billionaires in 1989. Like nobody knows anything about this guy. Who is this guy? Is it? And they always, but that was always the sort of thing that you said about reclusive billionaire, but also playboy. Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, right.
So he's reclusive, but he's a playboy.
Yeah.
But no one knows anything. Like Vicky Vale doesn't know what he looks like.
Would you
Nobody
say he's
knows.
living a dual life, like a?
Ooh.
Yeah, sort of. But it's funny, like there's plenty of billionaires in America right now. I don't know who most of them are, but Bruce Wayne, he had a tragic backstory in the city that he lives in, and nobody knows like what's the deal with this guy. Ooh, what's up?
So of the
And it's
billionaires
funny.
you do know right now, which one would be Bruce Wayne?
I don't know any person.
Well,
That's
Playboy
absurd,
billionaire.
I wasn't
Jeff
no,
Bezos.
Yeah.
I wish I met a billionaire. I've never met a billionaire.
Well, I mean,
But I mean, just
Elon Musk is at least building cars and rocket ships and
Yeah.
things like that.
Well, it's a different thing. Whereas like these billionaires are these untouchable people in the at a high stature, back then, kind of a thing. It's funny looking at it now where, oh, no one knows what he looks like. But of course, it's like, I mean, the universe of that movie still is it's you've got old cars and old like technology and things like that. It's not exactly a modern, modern of the time depiction. It's very stylized, very Burton-esque. So it is a funny little thing though.
Yeah.
Like no one knows what it looks like at their own house, at his own house. Like, I don't know. It's funny.
I also think it's of the time we're talking about money and how much money you have was considered kind of a faux pas and unclassy. So that's why they were more reclusive, even if they were playboys, because they were only, having higher end parties with other people that were also trying to stay out of the limelight. Whereas like now I feel like billionaires want to be like, oh, look at me. I got billions.
There's so
I'm
many
gonna build
billionaires.
I'm gonna build a rocket ship.
I don't
billionaire
feel-
needs a rocket ship these days.
I don't feel like this Bruce Wayne is patterned after anybody. Like I think you can make
No.
a case that
Yeah.
like some of
Right.
the later Bruce Waynes have a feel to them, and honestly, and one of the notes I seem to keep taking for some reason when we're watching it was, if anything, he's patterned after Dracula, right? Like because he lives in this castle. They keep referencing Batman in Dracula ways, which I know is supposed to be like we're scaring the bad guys, but then even you think of the way like the movie sorts to go, like that seems to be like the vibe Tim Burton's really working for. Like there's this gothic horror aspect to it that you don't see really in the other movies, even in the other movies in this series, in this stretch of time, the Burton Schumacher movies. And that seems to be like, this is what we're going to key around. This is essentially the daytime Dracula, where he's just like having parties at his house, not like when he's eating people, but like the daytime Dracula. So.
That's a good point. That's an interesting way to put it.
That is.
Huh. Yeah, he's this eccentric guy that nobody knows anything about, and he just sort of lets him in. And there's a giant mirror that he doesn't appear in the one scene, right? Like, I mean, he's not in the scene at all, but there's a giant mirror at the end of that scene.
Yeah. Oh, the
Who
one
knows
with the
if
camera.
Yeah, the camera.
Yeah. So I think there's something there. I've
There's
got so many notes just referencing that where I'm just like, Dracula question mark.
So many Dracula moments.
Oh, I took too many stupid.
Did they not do a Batman Dracula crossover in one of the like
Oh, sure.
animated movies? I'm pretty sure they did.
That feels like something that should exist.
Feels like those characters may have more to do with each other
Is
than
that
we
what
thought.
is that what Morbius is about?
Maybe.
He's a vampire of
He's
some
a
sort, right?
He's a
Yeah.
Spider-Man character.
Oh.
Is he?
Well,
Mobius.
I don't know anything.
Fine.
I don't know anything about him.
Wait a minute. Isn't there a Batman character that's literally called Batman and it's like a man bat and he's sort of a vampire?
He's the Man Bat.
Yeah,
Man Bat?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Man Bat.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that reminds me.
Is he all pissed off?
He's
He's like, why are you called Batman?
I'm
literally a
I'm
man bat.
literally
I
a
gotta go by
Batman.
Man bat? That sounds stupid, Batman. You're an asshole.
That's the only reason he's pissed at him.
Yeah. That's
Took my name
that's
and
it.
flipped it.
Yeah. That drove him to
Damn
become a
you.
supervillain. That and he was a giant bat. Yeah.
I had records when I was a kid of, Superman, Batman stories, and the one I had for Man Bat was like scared the hell out of me as a kid. It was like really like the way Man Bat like killed these like security guards at whatever place was just like brutal and scary for like a 4-year-old,
Sure.
So I'm still a little trepidatious about Man Bat. So
I think this is why
I'm sensitive.
Man Bat has never made his way into the movies. So even
think
though
you're
I
right.
mean Taylor Lautner's Man Bat would be amazing. So I'm fingers crossed for the next movie. So.
Well, we'll get into it later, but the animated series that came out of this a year later, or no, 3 years later, I think. 2 years.
2
later.
years later, yeah.
Yeah, the episode that debuted was called On Leather Wings, and it was about the Man Bat, and it was amazing. Holy shit!
We're gonna talk about the animated series a little deeper in here when we get to hour 6 of this episode.
Holy
We're
shit.
really tearing along so far.
We barely got into the casting process. Who
We're
else is in
we're
this
three
movie?
people into this movie.
Yeah.
Jack
boy.
Palance.
Well, look, yeah, we don't have to like spend a huge amount of time, but basically we've got Jack Palance. How do you pronounce that?
Jack Palance, Kim Basinger.
Yeah. So
I
Jack,
always said
Robert
Palance.
Well.
Now you got me guessing. That got me second guessing. Palance, I've never heard that before.
I always thought it was Palance. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
Jack
Palance.
Palance. What are you
It just
talking
rolls
about?
off the tongue.
I thought it was
Why are you
Palance,
making
but-
shit
All
up
right, it could
now,
be right.
John?
Could be right.
Jack P.
Jackie P.
Yeah.
Jackie P and Kimmy B.
And he's Carl Grissom, who again was based on what's the gangster character that's in the
Maroni?
main
Falcone. One of those.
yeah
Falcone.
Falcone.
Oh, Falcone. Yeah.
So I think he's based on that character, but technically it's a new one called Carl Grissom, who is the boss of Jack Napier. What's his name? Jack
Napier.
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 Yeah.
Isn't
He was
that-
named after Charles Napier.
Yeah, that's
from,
what I
from
was
the
gonna
Batman
say.
TV show. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, Napier? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
Jack Napier. Napier.
Yeah.
Not Napier.
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 You're
Are you saying it like
quicker.
Napier?
I'm
Like
saying
he's
it
French?
Like Napier.
Napier.
It's
Yeah.
not Napier. Like, what the hell are you talking about?
Are we all saying the same thing?
I
I
think
feel
we
like
just said the
everybody has said the same name.
You guys are saying
30
Napier, and I'm like that's
Napier.
not-
Napier.
This is the best episode we've ever done.
Jack Napier, though, is an alter ego that was created, I think, for the movie, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know.
Not-
Who are we
not-
talking about? I can't
he's not the
recognize the name.
He's not the identity of the
Who
Joker
the hell
in
are we
comics.
talking about?
Correct.
Jack
yeah, this
Napier.
is- yeah.
Oh, Jack Napier.
So we've got Michael Go, right, as Alfred, and Pat Hingle as Commissioner Gordon, and the amazing Billy D. Williams as who?
Billy D.
As what would become Two-Face.
Harvey Dent.
Harvey Dent.
Hercules. Sorry, I said the wrong
Yeah.
reference.
Real quick, I just wanted to throw in.
he
Has
got-
everybody noticed that Pat Hingle only has 9 fingers? Does everybody know this?
Didn't
Did
see
not
that.
notice that.
Because I've seen this movie, no lie, 150 times. But I watched Elmer Gantry not that long ago. Look, I don't want to get too far off base. We've been doing this for hours. But I watched Elmer Gantry
Why
not that
stop
long
now?
ago. And there's a story that Pat Hingle was supposed to play Elmer Gantry. And Elmer Gantry was, won Burt Lancaster and Oscar. It was a big movie. But on the way to like audition, Pat Hingle was doing a show on Broadway. He had some sort of mishap where he got caught in an elevator and then fell down the shaft and got real injured, and he lost one of his fingers. And so ever since then, whenever Pat
Wait,
Hingle
that's
pops
all?
up in something,
He fell down an elevator shaft, and all that happened was he lost a finger.
He broke his ribs and he fell like 50 feet. But
Holy
the
shit.
lasting thing is that he lost one of his pinky fingers. And so like in this movie you don't see it much, but at the beginning at the craps table and that scene, you can see he distinctly doesn't have a pinky finger, and I never noticed this until recent years. Pat Hingle.
Fun fact.
There you are. I have that like circled, and I wanted to throw it.
I'm never gonna be able to watch the movie again without looking at that.
I gotta
finger.
look that
I'm
up.
telling you.
So Pat Hingle and Michael Gough are the only actors that make it all the way through the 4-part Batman series through the 90s, right? They're the only
quadrilogy.
actors. Yeah, the
Are
quadrilogy.
they in all 4 movies?
Yeah.
They are, yeah. Although I think they have
Pat Hingle's in
barely.
all 4 movies?
Pat Hingle, I think, has one line in Batman and Robin. That's it.
There's
But
4 of these movies.
And he's
Well,
still
the-
Commissioner Gordon the whole time?
Yeah.
the
Gordon has
two,
nothing to do by the
the
end.
two Tim Burtons and the two whatchamacallit?
Joel Schumacher.
Joel Schumacher films. Yeah.
Humacher? What?
Schumacher. It's funny.
Miss
to think-
Tessmacher?
Miss Tessmacher.
What? Joel Schumacher?
Oh my god.
Would have been great.
It's funny to think that Commissioner Gordon and Batman, they're intertwined. Like why? Oh wow, we had less and less as we gone on. And
Yeah.
it was just Batman doing stuff.
Yep. Yeah. Non-essential characters, I guess.
The only other actor I wanted to throw in is the great William Hootkins. I don't want to sleep on Hootkins.
Oh,
He played
don't,
Eckhart.
don't you dare.
And
Eckhart.
yeah, and this was always my thing. This was another thing that I always kind of never realized is movies I saw a million times that William Hootkins plays Porkins in Star Wars.
Yes.
And then also pops up in Raiders of the Lost Ark as one
What?
of those guys at the
Yeah.
beginning.
The-
And he's Eckhart. And I saw these 3 movies
He's
again
Porkins.
hundreds
Yeah.
of times, and that's the same guy, and I never realized it.
Yeah,
Wow.
you would not know that it's the
What?
same guy, but
He
it
looks
sure is.
completely different. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, and
He's
he's
a
such scumbag
thespian.
in Batman.
He's a
Yes.
thespian.
Oh,
He is.
Master
He-
Thespian.
Disappears in the role. Holy shit.
He also appears in Superman 4, The Quest for Peace.
Oh, nice.
Amazing.
Hootkins was everywhere.
What
Don't
did
go
he
watch
do?
Who gets get it done? No, he's very effective.
He has all 10 fingers, I think.
Let's check that.
So Billy D. Williams as Harvey Dent. Now that's interesting, knowing where that character goes. And
Yeah.
when he signed up for the movie, it was sort of in his mind with the intention that this is a setup for a later movie where he's going to play
Right.
Two-Face. That, as we know, did not happen for Billy D.
Right.
Why
Yeah.
didn't it happen? Just because Tommy Lee was a bigger deal? at
I
the
don't know,
time?
but
They
you
were
know,
like,
by the time they rolled around to that character, it was 1995. Tommy Lee Jones was a much bigger name at the time, and
it's like we got a new Batman. Let's get a new Two-Face.
yeah, I think they kind of let go of any of the old deals. So
Because there's no Harvey Dent in Batman Returns at all, right?
I
no,
don't think
Nope.
so. Yeah.
They didn't recast it or anything.
no, and
Yeah.
there's really like he doesn't have much of a part in this one either. He's just sort of there.
Mhm.
But with
Just the
the
DM.
casting of Billy D, like you know that there's going to be, or you assume there's going to be more to that,
Yeah. Yeah.
and maybe
I
there
think
would
they
have
wanted
been.
Quite a
I'm
small
sorry.
part for Billy D.
I always
Yeah.
kind of thought they just wanted to pack Star Wars actors in there for some reason, because you got him and Hootkins, Garrick Hagon's in there, like in a little part at the beginning. So
They're
they're
all
packing
there.
them in. So yeah.
All of the stars.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's you know, that's quite a cast right there. Now let's talk visually. So
Ooh.
so as we've kind of spoke about previously, we take a deep and dark turn with the visual style in this. So we're moving away from the gray and blue suit that Batman wore to this black leather, you know, outfit that no actor could possibly move in and probably peed in quite a bit.
Okay. Yeah.
It's true.
I think you've put too much thought into that.
Oh boy, the old Bat bladder. Yeah.
The bat ladder. Yeah, but we get dark and moody kind of all across the board with Anton Furst's gothic style production design and just taking a much, you know, I think Joe, you were talking about it before, the taking essentially New York City and making it this sort of alternate version with a gothic twist in there, and the dark, you know, mood of New York City in the 80s, that it was a violent place. Like it was not I grew up just outside of the city, and I never wanted to go down there. It was always like, it's nope, no one's going to the city. Like you go during the day right to like Radio City and back out, and that's it.
Right.
Like you're not walking around. And
Yeah.
and I remember through the 90s it started to get, it started to change and get a little easier to walk around down there. But the 80s was with Mayor Koch was not
once the Disney
kind.
store opened.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
The
Turned it
Disney
right
store
around.
opened and Disney cleaned up New York.
The M&M's people really
Yeah.
just changed everything down there.
Yeah. But a lot of the visuals were influenced by Brazil and the Terry Gilliam film Brazil, and you could definitely see it. And I think it is one of the key elements of why this movie was such a success and really just set the tone for the character immediately.
Yeah. I mean, it has that very futuristic look, which, I mean, Brazil is weird because even though it is this, science fiction-y fantasy, it's not an overly fantastic future. It is just very stylized. But like, it looks like a lot like Blade Runner. Like it has that sort of elements of it. I think, but just because it's so dank and everything seems so wet, and it's just sort of like, that's what it feels like. But
Yeah.
when I
There's
was
like
reading,
pipes and smoke and dripping water and
yeah. But like I never thought of Brazil until I had read that like this was one of the things that they had pointed to, and I was like, oh yeah, it does look a lot like Brazil. Yeah.
Yeah. Danny Elfman's score,
Ooh,
huge.
best,
Yeah.
I
best,
mean,
some of the best.
one of the best, movie themes of all time.
Yeah, it's like an opera. Like it's really amazing. What like how the score carries that movie in a very Star Wars kind of way. Like
Right?
And
go ahead, David.
Well, I was gonna say, it supplements or complements the visuals so well, like just that gothic nature and the towering, buildings and interiors and everything is larger than life, and like that's what this score does, and it's it's right there with it. It absolutely follows the visuals so well.
That opening sequence of the title sequence I'm talking about. So where you just all you're doing is hearing the score and you're flowing through these like stone or like iron kind of hallways or pathways. You don't really know where you're going or what's happening, but it's setting the tone and really like settling you into the movie mood wise. And then it just, it finally pulls back and you see the Batman logo, and then like it all comes to the crescendo, and it's just such a great moment. I mean, it's such an important moment, really like just stamping that this character's here. This is a new version. Forget everything you've seen. This is a reset.
Right. Yeah.
And it's so important.
Yeah, there's no time for that Batman 66 stuff. No Adam West stuff. Like this is a whole other thing. And get ready.
Yeah.
and that theme, that they carry that into the animated series, and it with the style and direction of this movie with the animated series, like again, it continued to define Batman for decades. So this is like, oh man, that score's so good. Watching the movie again, I was just like, oh, I love this. This is so good. I didn't even know how good it was at the time. Like when I first saw it, I had no idea what I was getting into.
I think it was somewhat underappreciated in its time. Like it wasn't like I don't think the movie was nominated for best score. Like it wasn't an acclaimed score.
No.
I don't think Elfman had that sort of cachet. He had done like Beetlejuice and he did Pee-wee's Big Adventure, but and you can see they're very similar.
I mean, he's still coming off Oingo Boingo, really, at this time.
Right. But he also did the Simpsons theme, right? And that's the same year. So like 89 is big for Elfman.
Yeah.
But I don't think he was
scores.
Right. But I don't think he was considered like a major composer of film scores at that point. So maybe it didn't quite get the appreciation that it deserved.
Yeah, but really, like this was, I think, one of the first movies to release two soundtracks, or one score by Danny Elfman and then the Prince soundtrack.
Whew. Yeah.
So that's huge, and
had them on cassette.
Oh, did you?
Oh.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bat dance.
So, all right, here's
goddamn.
For me, one thing that I never loved about the movie, and it's probably the only thing I didn't love about it, is that Prince soundtrack. It's
what?
just it's It's fun. Look, Prince
What's
is
wrong with
great.
you?
Prince is a genius. We all know that. It takes me out of the movie. I always found it like too much and distracting.
It dates the movie a lot. I'll give you
Yeah.
that. It makes the movie feel like an 80s movie when otherwise it feels like kind of a movie from the 40s, or it feels like an old movie with all that design. But
yeah, I get it. The Prince music just doesn't seem to fit the tone of the score, right? Like they feel to me like two separate things.
Yeah.
I like that Jack Napier is a Prince fan and he plays the music when he trashes that museum. I'm like,
I still
like,
do
he
really
listens
like
to
those
Prince.
songs.
Like, that's cool, right? He's kind of hip, right?
The songs, like on their own, are totally fine. Like no issue with that. It's just the mix of it, and in that
weird.
That museum sequence, it just was like, he was, to me, like, he was so dark and like scary at that time, and then the dancing around the museum with the boombox and like it just, I don't know, it took me out.
He's a goofball all the time. He's homicidal, like we know that. I don't know.
Sure.
I think this is a way to all right. Well, your mileage may vary.
I can see it. Like I can see
it.
that logic. I do think it mixes kind of badly, but it is still like I like the songs, and I think that helps. And I wasn't a huge Prince fan. Like this, my Prince at the time was just this. So
I don't think I knew who Prince was back then. Like
I think we missed when Prince was great, right? Because we're just a little too young.
I mean, I remember Purple Rain.
Purple Rain.
That was
I
remember that playing on HBO and all that stuff when I was a kid. I never sat down and watched it, but I recognized the music. I recognized Prince and obviously who he was as a musician. But,
I just think when that stuff was new, I was too young. Like I think Purple Rain came out in like 84 or 85, so like I was just a little too young to really get into it. And then Prince didn't really put out anything until Batman after that. So I think that's why I didn't have that sort of appreciation.
As I've learned on this podcast, John and Brent could have been in the theater when Purple Rain came out, and I'd be like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" I was watching the Smurfs, and you're like, "Yeah, no, I saw."
Pretty sure
John's
grandma took him to see Purple Rain.
First movie I saw in theaters was Platoon.
That does remind me. Batman is in my grandma collection.
I was going to say, is it in Gam Gam's collection?
Yep.
Yes, it is.
Yep, took me to see it. Batman and Batman Returns.
Nice.
But all right, listen. If you could throw on the Bat Dance video right now, wouldn't you watch it from beginning to end and think this is the greatest thing I'm watching ever?
Probably, yeah.
It's so good.
David's actually doing the Bat Dance while
the
he's
Bat Dance video is so
crazy.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
If anybody could see, if they could see us right now, David's doing amazing things.
It's going to be the first thing we release on.
Bat Dance is incredible.
I can't believe we haven't mentioned that you're made up like Prince right now with the half Joker and
the half
Batman.
That's what I look like.
We're all dressed up as different Batman characters right now.
Yeah. Poison Ivy was a mistake. Uncomfortable. Ugh. Sorry.
All right, so let's kind of get into the meat of the story here. I think
what's the movie about?
So Batman.
So there's a guy
into the podcast. Let's get into the meat now, John.
There's a guy named Bruce Wayne.
Quit fucking with the potatoes, man.
Why are we still talking about William Hootkins?
Oh my god. So as far as the origin story goes, I mean, I think I really loved how they did it. It really felt the way they shot that sort of flashback scene to his parents being shot was always like really got to me as a kid. It was very disturbing as a 9-10-year-old. I thought they really just nailed it. We never got a Batman origin story we never needed one for the Batman 60s show. And you really sort of, at this point, had to be a pretty big follower of the comics to really know about it, right? It wasn't something that was referenced that often.
Yeah, I don't know how common knowledge it was.
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing it that this was the first time I actually, really thought about how he became Batman. Like, he was always just Batman.
I mean, really, I don't think they've actually done the origin that many times, right? I mean, even they reference it in other things, but on the Gotham TV show they do it. But again, he's a kid. You have to have him as a kid for it to really work its way in, right?
It's pretty much referenced, like it's referenced in the Batman Forever quite a bit, and then
where it's not Jack Napier, right? Isn't it supposed to be like somebody else in that one?
I don't know. I don't remember. It's been so long.
Yeah,
but like and then I don't know. And then we saw it in of course the Nolan, and then we saw it. It keeps coming up.
It's been,
right,
it's been retold since.
Right. I just mean that it's not part of the mainline thing. Like we're not starting with that, and then
It's-
20 years later he's Batman.
It's not. It's not like we have to do the origin story every time, but they do reference the.
I knew that Dick Grayson's parents died in a horrific circus accident because
those are terrible.
Because of my book on tape. But I had no idea what happened to Batman's parents because that was too dark.
Those circus accidents, those are tough. Those are tough to come back from.
They were trapeze artists.
Yeah.
Tough gig.
Terrible fail. It's tragic.
But
it's a big part of the book.
Yeah, really, really. I don't know. One of the most memorable moments for me is the first time seeing it was that sequence of what happens to his parents, and that really stuck with me. Great job of casting somebody who looks like a young Jack Nicholson too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoever that guy was, hats off.
That fellow.
All props to that man.
And then, then when we see Batman for the first time, really portraying him almost like a monster was also probably something that was much more out of The Dark Knight Returns, right? Where he's sort of has that kind of energy. Not that he is a monster or anything, but
it is funny though. Like his first appearance in the film as Batman, like he's got his arms up and he's got the cape up, and it's a little funny, a little cheesy, kind of like he's just trying to be like this big imposing but he's just a guy in a suit, like, and he floats. And it happens a couple times, and he's just. No, he's not as scary. He's just sort of he's just this guy. But that's colored by 30 years since, of Batman being a badass kind of guy.
See, I think this points to that Dracula thing I was talking about, where it seems very like posing, like it's very much like more of a figure, like to be this intimidating thing than anything else, and that feels very much like this is a director twist. Like we really want to hammer this idea to be just this scary figure as opposed to a real ass kicker,
Yeah, and then we see the mirroring sort of origin story of the Joker, where we spend quite a bit of time. I always felt like we spent a lot of time with Jack Napier, really like seeing what he's like before becoming the Joker, and I think Jack's doing sort of a good job of like almost like auditioning for a role in The Godfather, just like a good solid gangster right there, and who's double crossed by Grissom, and great performance and great. How often are we do they reference a Joker origin story? Do they ever get into his true backstory? That's part of the character, is that you never know, right?
His true origin's never been revealed. They have versions of it, but the Joker's there's no definitive story. They've done it a couple times, and sort of this is the more the accepted thing. But like in the comics, there's technically 3 Jokers. Like I don't know.
Really?
It's weird. Yeah.
Do tell, David.
I don't know. I don't know anything about it, but there's
one of them's played by Joaquin Phoenix. One's played by
exactly.
But do you feel like this version of the Joker's origin is ridiculous and over the top, or do you buy it? Looking back at it now,
I mean, it's a little bit of a stretch because you don't get a ton of him being like a psychopath. Like they keep telling you that, and then it happens, and then it's a shortcut to get him to be the Joker. That whatever his homicidal tendencies and all that, they get exacerbated. Because even Eckhart's like, you are too crazy to be a bad guy. So Jack Palance is gonna get rid of you. Grissom's gonna get rid of you because you're too crazy to be a criminal and all that. So they don't want to spend too much time on the meat of like the psychology of whatever's either any of these characters, I think.
But if you fell into a vat of acid
Yeah.
would you just come out of it basically okay? Your hair a different color, your skin a different color, and you're a lot crazier? That's probably all that would happen, right?
I mean, yeah.
That's, I mean,
No,
that's
I
how.
mean, I mean, he's going, he's going the extra mile. I mean, he was probably just homicidal and kind of goofy,
Yeah.
but you don't see a lot of goofiness. And now the goofiness is turned up to 11, and but he's still, and the homicidal tendencies are even.
Yeah. Now he
even
looks
worse.
like a comic book character, so he can act like a comic book
Yeah,
character.
I used
there
to
we go.
think like. I used to think like, how did he smile like that? Like, I didn't even realize there's prosthetics involved back then. Like,
Yeah.
You just thought
I
it
was
was
like, how did
Jack
he do
just
that?
holding it.
I thought it was Jack Nicholson. Like, holy shit, how did he do
Committed.
that?
Now, here's
uh,
so I've gone back and forth with people about Jack's performance as the Joker. Do you feel now, again, looking at it from 2022, do you feel like it's over the top, or is this sort of like prime Jack Nicholson?
I'm not weighing in on this one.
David's gonna.
I think it's perfect for the time. Like, I think he did the part correctly, for again, I mean, going back to the evolution of kind of Batman and where it goes from. But I don't know. I was just sitting here talking about the Joker. I'm thinking about Heath Ledger's performance a lot. And I'm like, man, that's the ultimate, like, I feel like that's the finish line, right? Like, now everybody's like, who plays that part from this point forward is going to have to compete with that portrayal.
Well, yeah, and that's part of the evolution of the franchise is the different takes on it. I mean, at the time, Tim Burton's Batman was super serious, or it felt serious, even though there's like lighter moments. It felt very heavy and very serious. When you compare it to Nolan's, it's like a comedy. So,
Well, sure.
Right.
Yeah. Well, like the joke. Yeah. Like, that's the thing. I mean, Joker is only when Joker shows up in the comics or whatever, it's not like he's funny. Like, it's like, oh, it's a goofy good time. Like, he's his own guy and he's his own goofiness, but it's not like it's lighthearted by any stretch. So yeah, I mean, even this, he's a dangerous person, and we see that, and he shows up everywhere in this movie. So he goes to Vicky Vale's house or apartment, and somehow she's just staying in town, and he needed a phone book to find her. That doesn't make sense.
David, this is pre-cell phones and whatnot.
She was just staying in town, as we learned in the earlier scene, and then he wants a phone book to find her. I don't think that would happen. I don't get it.
Maybe she registered really quickly.
It took me out of the movie. Like the way you guys say these things take me out of the movie. I don't buy it. Nope. This movie sucks.
So the only thing I would say about the Nicholson Joker, as far as like comparing it, right, is I think it's a neat kind of middle ground between the real wacky comic book Joker and then the later kind of heavier Jokers, right? Like Heath Ledger's performance is a better performance. Hell, Joaquin Phoenix's performance is a better performance, and I don't think that's the Joker at all. Like, that's just something, right? Yeah. But I think as the Joker character, right, like, if you want to go right with the comic books, like the Mark Hamill Joker is as good as it's ever going to get. Like, that's just it. But it's so crazy and it's so over the top that if you pull that back a little bit, I think you end up at the Jack Nicholson Joker, basically. Yeah. But he's probably too old, to really be playing that part. I think that just he's not as sprightly as I think a lot of the other Jokers are. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that sort of works against the movie a little bit, is that he's so much older than Batman, where I never get that impression in any other version of Batman that's the difference,
Yeah, they're much more kind of, in future versions, they're much more on the same level. Here, yeah, Jack's been acting at this point already for like 25 years. Yeah. Keaton's been acting for like 7 or 8.
Right.
So, but I mean,
I don't think this was originally the plan. Like, I think they ended up having to change stuff to make this work this way.
Yeah.
But because of that, then they did manage to cram in the fact that he kills his parents, which originally wasn't, I don't think, part of it either. So,
right.
Yeah. So it did streamline the plot a little bit, but it does still feel like a very different thing than almost all other versions of the Batman Joker thing.
I've gone back and forth about his performance as the Joker over the years. Like, I loved it at first, and then, through high school and college, I was really kind of down on it. Like, just too much, too over the top, too kind of ridiculous. now I watching it this time, I loved it again. Like,
It's
I guess
enjoyable.
maybe it's
Yeah.
because I kind of miss Jack. We haven't seen him act since 2007 or 8. So,
Yeah.
but this is sort of like, it does to me feel like this is the peak of his career. He was never bigger popularity wise than this movie right here.
Yeah. We were recently talking about Wolf, and I think you look at the stuff he does right after Batman. This is now big box office Jack. It's a little different than it, because he was a huge movie star and he's a great actor. But after Batman, now he's a huge box office star, which I think is just a difference. And you can see, like, by the kind of stuff he does after that,
A Few Good
for the
Men.
next couple of years. I mean, Wolf isn't it came out in the middle of the summer, but it wasn't a big hit movie. Mars Attacks is a big effects movie, things like that. Then I think it takes a while for him to get back, but you can see, like, the Chinatown sequel is a very strange thing to make immediately after Batman. And it feels like, it's almost like, well, now he can do anything he wants. What has he always wanted to do, I guess? Direct a Chinatown sequel. So,
Yeah, and that one went off the rails, but
yeah.
we'll talk about that in our Chinatown episode whenever we do that.
Don't do a Two Jakes episode.
We can't do one just on the Two Jakes.
Well, we started with Batman Returns here, so I don't know what the pattern is.
Yeah, we start with 2 Jakes. We go back 2 years later to Chinatown.
That's it.
We do all our franchises backwards.
Yeah. But yeah, now I feel like I love it. So
It fits though in the scheme of things. It's not outside the realm of this Burton-esque, the whole Burton feel of the whole thing, right? Like, the performance is very much, it fits this sort of, because he, if you think of the production design, the darkness of Bruce Wayne, all of this stuff, this like other love story going on, and then you just have this chaotic character sort of at the side of it, and he's not so over the top. He's not completely crazy and giant things. I mean, there's that design of, like, just the colorful things that he does, and the present that he gives her, and it's in the ribbon, and with the ribbons and the crayon, like, like, put this on, and then, like, he's gonna shoot himself and it just says bang. Like, it's all very, like, it's very Joker in the Tim Burton world. Like, I think it all kind of fits, and I think his performance kind of matches that. I don't think he's extreme in the sense of what you might see in a different kind of version of Batman.
yeah.
I don't know.
But Tim Burton's doing a great job of thematically what's going on here. You've got, of course, the obvious theme is the dual identities and the identity crisis between not only Batman and Bruce Wayne, but also the Joker and Jack Napier, and the shift of their personalities, and wrestling with that. What's the real version of themselves? Is he really Bruce Wayne, or is he really Batman? I mean, that's an ongoing theme for that character always, and it always will be. But I think they did a good job of balancing it here with, and Keaton is like really ultimately like one of the perfect actors for that role, that you can buy him as Bruce Wayne, as this handsome, kind of suave, millionaire. And then he's the one who institutes the voice, right? Doesn't he come up with the gravelly voice when he's Batman?
Yeah, I think he wanted to do something different because he was concerned that it would be too obvious that that Bruce Wayne was Batman. So he came up with that voice, which did give us the crazy Christian Bale Batman voice.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
Yeah.
So.
Swear to me.
And the Ben Affleck one too, right?
Yeah.
And now it's a staple.
All of
so.
them. Yeah.
Everybody. Yeah.
You have to disguise your voice. Everyone will know who you are.
Otherwise, they'll know.
Yeah.
This movie is probably a little more violent than I think people were expecting at the time. That shift again from the campy 60s one with the pows and the zaps and the, like that kind of style of fighting. And now you've got people getting thrown in vats of acid and thrown off of cathedrals and like, when I remember when the Joker shoots Bob, who's played by Tracy Walters, another actor who's been in a million films in the 70s and 80s, but
Yeah.
when he shoots him, it was like, man, like he just shot his number one guy.
Yeah, ruthless.
Yeah,
There's a lot. I mean, Batman kills a lot of people in this movie. They always say, "Oh, Batman doesn't kill people." He blows up Axis chemicals and kills everybody in there.
Everybody.
In there, he's knocking guys off the top of the cathedral. Like, no, Batman just kills.
Indiscriminate murder.
Doesn't care.
Hitting people with the bell at the top of the cathedral right in the face.
Yeah. I mean, come on, like. Batman's not going to kill anybody. This is a rule in the comics forever. Yeah. Well, out the window in the first movie.
He's not using a gun, but he is using everything else, missiles and bombs.
That is the tool of the enemy.
Yeah.
Which,
does that carry over into the Schumacher versions too?
What? Not using a gun or the violence?
The Batman killing, because I'm sure it does into Batman Returns, because
I feel like he kills. I feel like he kills henchmen.
He doesn't kill anybody in Nolan verse. But
no.
Does he kill anybody? Yeah, in the Returns, I don't know.
In Returns, he kills that one guy with the dynamite. That's the only one I can remember.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he kicks the guy down the.
Yeah, but that's the only one I can remember, though.
In Batman Forever, I mean, he's fighting a lot of henchmen,
a lot of goons.
Yeah, a lot of goons.
A lot of goons.
We just don't see where their final landing spot is. Maybe.
Yeah.
We don't.
We're not tracking them back to the ER.
They're flipping. We don't
fractures.
see them land on spikes.
Get the head counts on this, guys. We gotta figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, that's what Batman and Robin was. It led right into episodes of ER.
Yeah,
that's right.
Go to the trauma center and
with Clooney.
Yeah, imagine Batman with a gun. He'd be just crushing dudes all the time. Just come and kick that guy, but then shoot that guy. It'd be so much easier if he could just.
Why doesn't he carry a gun? I feel like all his in the later movies,
why doesn't he?
His vehicles have weapons that shooting weapons and missiles and all sorts of shit. Why doesn't he just carry a gun?
He was. Yeah, I don't know. He
why? What?
It's a weird rule. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Because justice, I'm all about justice.
Do any of the
if I have to chase you, F that, I'm shooting you. But
do any superhero characters actually have guns?
Well, most of them have powers, so they don't need guns. But I'm trying. Who's like Iron Man has not exactly guns.
Missiles.
He's got
the thing. He can kill anybody.
Yeah.
You imagine he blowing that repulsor blast?
I mean, the Punisher, I guess, if you consider him a hero.
Yeah, Punisher, yeah.
But he's not really a hero, right?
No, he's sort of a vigilante.
He's a garbage person. Yeah.
He's a garbage.
He's a garbage man.
Hawkeye has a bow and arrow.
Not a gun.
Guys.
Oh well, Black Widow has that gun.
Yeah, all right.
That's there's a lot of guns.
The big Avengers scene where they're all turning around and they all got and she's got a gun.
Yeah. Do you think if Thor electrifies you with lightning, do you think most people are going to survive that? I don't.
Guys, that's all Marvel.
Not at all.
That's all Marvel, though.
Oh, that's true.
Okay.
So,
well, Aquaman doesn't have a gun, but he has a trident that he's.
What if Aquaman had a gun?
Oh my! A gun that could shoot underwater.
Oh, awesome!
Pew, glub glub.
Dude,
I want to pitch that. Oh, Aquaman with a gun.
And then Wonder Woman would have an invisible gun. You wouldn't see it coming.
Oh man! Oh,
you've got characters that run really fast that they can
Flash with a gun. Oh my god!
Flash don't need no gun. He'd outrun that gun.
That's true.
They can do stuff underwater. They've got invisible planes. They've got power rings that can do really cool stuff.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense that all his vehicles have these weapons, but he's like, I'm not.
He uses
a batarang.
He's using them against objects, not people.
Yeah.
Mostly. Yeah.
Why do you need a Gatling gun for an object?
We open up a door.
Yeah. You got
when he fires that row of bullets so he can drive into the
okay.
Never to hurt people.
He busts through the Axis chemicals, and there's 50 guys with guns right there, like shooting at his car. Like,
nope. Let's
he's
blow
like,
it up.
yeah, I'm gonna drop a bomb, kill all of you. Bye.
See ya.
How about the
the price you pay.
Batmobile? How awesome was the Batmobile?
Awesome.
Amazing,
So
right?
So cool.
Oh.
I had a poster of the Batmobile with its statistics.
I think I had that same poster.
Statistics.
Did you really?
I think
I did. Yeah.
It's a horizontal.
Yeah, it was
poster,
yeah.
And it had stats about how fast it can go.
Yeah, I think I had that same poster.
All the
Sure,
gadgets.
that's cool.
Yeah.
That's neat.
I mean, the Batmobiles for the most part have always been cool. Even the '60s one was like at the time that was a cool car.
Hell yeah.
At a lot of there's a car museum in LA that has several of the Batmobiles, and they're really awesome to see. And
Nice.
now they're like more like tanks than anything in the newer movies. That's the thing.
You
I
can
remember
thank the Dark Knight Returns for that. It's pretty much a tank in that comic.
Yeah.
I remember when Dark Knight, or it may have just been Nolan's first Batman, when that released, they actually had that Batmobile sitting outside AMC theaters, you know, like, so when you go, you just like, whoa, it's like right there. It was
The
pretty
Tumbler.
cool. Yeah.
Nice.
This is I don't know. There's so many things I love about this movie. I mean, there's so many things that work about it, and it had such a huge impact, you know, that year and then going forward. So this is sort of the rebirth of the superhero characters, and would eventually lead to, well, it immediately led to the animated series. So you can point to the style of Batman really sort of had its relaunch with this movie, with Tim Burton's 1989 Batman. And every version after that is a different version of that dark character, that dark gothic kind of look, all of it, you know, every version since then. So this is sort of the real birth of the character, but to that degree. But the animated series coming out within 2 years of this movie was huge. I mean, I remember coming home from school every day, or I can't remember what days it was on, but it was
5 days a week.
Yeah, right? Monday to Friday, right?
Absolutely.
Like 4 p.m., 4:30, something like that.
On your Fox Kids animated, every day. Yeah, absolutely.
Just an amazing series. I think to this day it still works incredibly well, kind of like the X-Men series that came out in '92.
Totally holds up.
Totally, right? And you really get to dig in with these characters that in ways that you can't do in the feature films. Mm-hmm. And especially when they started to go sort of in a different direction with Joel Schumacher, that you still had the animated series and a serious take, like the Mr. Freeze storyline. And heartbreaking, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And they all had it. You know, the like all the silly characters from the 60s version, you got the serious version in the animated series.
It's funny. I never watched the animated series at all, because I think when did it come out? When did it start coming out? Like 92?
92. Yeah, 91, 92. Yeah.
Fall
of 92.
So I was like, that's when I had started high school. And so, you know, like we would go home and we were watching like,
jeez, really?
We were watching, we were watching. Yep, I'm old. Sorry. Thanks, David.
Sorry, I was still a child.
I was 4 at this
time. No, well, you're not going to watch daytime cartoons at 3 o'clock.
Well, we were watching like Ren and Stimpy and Beavis and Butthead and shit like that.
Makes sense.
You know, so like we weren't really watching
92.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
In 92, I was like doing acid and like smoking pot and watching Ren and Stimpy. Freaking yeah, man. I was a messed up freshman in high school. I used to have all sorts of issues, dude. Like I cleaned up my act a lot.
Oh, fair enough. I thought you were.
I'd go over to my buddy's house. I'd drop a bunch of acid and watch freaking Ren and Stimpy, man.
Wow.
In 92, I thought you were a year younger than you are, or. Never mind. Doesn't matter. That's cool. Yeah, that's what. Oh man, yeah, 92 is when it came out. They did like 85 episodes, and then they like started doing stuff like they made it like Batman and Robin, because Robin was in the original series. Then they like focused specifically on Robin, and they just kept making them. And then they like did a Superman show, and they just kept doing this little universe. And Kevin Conroy was our titular Batman, starting in 92, and for 30 years, Kevin Conroy is the voice of Batman.
Yeah, he's really the longest running Batman. He doesn't do it for every Batman project, but he's in a lot of them.
Yeah, much of the DC now does a lot of DC Warner Brothers do animated movies, shows, whatever, mostly movies. And like, yeah, there's definitely different people that play Batman. But like, you know, Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill came back to do their characters for the video games, that the Arkham games that they did. And they were incredible, great performances. And it's just so funny to think like they do these things and they don't necessarily, that it's not all the same universe, but they're informed by what they had done for the cartoon or whatever. Like it's, I just love that idea that it's all connected, but it's not. So you can just kind of lean in, you know, I kind of like that.
He pops up as live action Bruce Wayne in Crisis on Infinite Earths too.
Sure does.
Which was amazing.
Conroy does?
Yeah.
Conroy does.
Never see Conroy live action. So I was like, wow, it was amazing.
He plays old Bruce Wayne.
He plays old Bruce Wayne.
Suit.
That's like, amazing.
Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah.
I love that shit.
Yeah.
So let me ask. Well, two questions. The first being, who's your favorite Batman?
Bruce Wayne.
Oh, David.
Jean-Paul Valley.
What do you mean? Anyone who's ever portrayed
out of
Batman
all
ever?
the actors that have played Batman that you've seen, what's your personal favorite? I'm probably going to say Kevin Conroy.
Kevin Conroy. That's it. Kevin Conroy.
I'm going to go Keaton, but
I think I'm still with Michael Keaton too.
All right.
I've watched too many of the cartoons, played too many of the video games. Kevin Conroy is my Batman forever. Batman forever.
I mean, I again have no real interest in the current run of DC movies. Like the Justice League or none of these movies are any good. But the fact that Keaton's coming back for the Flash movie that's all I'm looking forward to now.
Yeah.
I've got to see this thing.
Pretty awesome.
It's awesome.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
What about Joker? Who's everyone's favorite Joker?
I mean, I'm going Heath Ledger.
I'm gonna go Heath also.
I mean, listen, Heath
with
Ledger's
Mark
great.
Hamill close behind.
But again, I missed the window. On
you wouldn't know, you don't know.
I mean, I know that it was hugely popular, but it was like I just barely missed it. You know?
Yeah, if it's not in your wheel, like if you're not paying attention to these things. But I mean, no, Mark Hamill all day.
I'd probably go with Mark Hamill too.
All right, there we have it. No votes for Christian Bale. No votes for Jack. It's crazy.
No votes for George Clooney. Are you kidding
or
me?
Val? Or
I still think my favorite Batman movie though is Dark Knight.
The Dark Knight.
Right? I mean, The Dark Knight is just a perfect movie.
It's the greatest movie.
I mean, but then the third one is I think the third one is garbage. What is it called?
The Bane movie?
The Dark Knight Rises.
It drives me crazy.
I don't know if it's garbage.
I still like it better than Batman Begins. I'm not a Batman Begins fan.
I
the
like
sepia Batman Begins. I just can't get into that.
Come on, we all did the Bane voice for like 5 years.
It's the best.
You gotta love that.
How does it go, David?
Yeah, let's hear it.
I don't remember. I don't know.
Come on.
I don't know.
You know, you practice right before.
Well, I'm not. I do it all. I do it every day.
Every morning.
You do it to the mailman. Hello, mailman.
Hello, mailman.
You have a package for me today.
Yeah.
That's no, I have trouble with the third one, but I like the first two. So,
have either of you guys seen the Harley Quinn show on HBO?
No.
Harley.
No.
Is there a show?
It's
like a cartoon?
It's an animated show. It's extremely good.
Really?
I bet if I had watched the animated Batman series, I probably would have watched the
Well, and the animated series gave us Harley Quinn, which has become an iconic character.
Is that where she came from? She wasn't in the comics. She came from
Correct.
the. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, she was created for the. She was she was a partner to Mr. J, the Joker, and then she's now been integrated into the mainstream DC universe, and she shows up in all the cartoons and all that, and she has her own show on HBO.
Oh, that's cool.
She's the lead, and that show it's very adult, and it's hilarious. I can't speak high. It takes everything you know about. If you like any DC shit, and I think you guys do like DC stuff, like it takes all this DC stuff, has fun with it, and it's very funny. And
How much of it is there?
There's 2 seasons. I can't recommend it highly enough. It's very good.
I feel like I have to go back and watch like 30 years of Batman the animated
all the cartoons.
series.
You don't.
No, you don't even need it because it's
No,
sort of
but
the
you should.
No, but
You should.
but I feel like I need to do that.
Well, you should.
So good.
It'll
Just
be
to
helpful.
do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
But
for the sake of it.
It takes stuff from the comics, the other movies, the shows. Like, their Bane is in the show, so
Yeah.
they take the Bane performance.
It's always been in my like periphery. It's just never anything that I really
Yeah.
like,
No, it's all. I mean, if you like DC stuff, it's very much DC centric, and then
Yeah.
comics and all that. But then, like the Tom Hardy performance of Bane is lampooned in the show, and Bane's in it, and it's silly. It's like, why would Bane sound like that? Like, Bane could sound like anything, And they pick the Tom Hardy performance. So anyway, and then Batman shows up in it. Joker's in it. It's really great. Batman's
Nice.
played by. Batman is played by
Kevin Conroy.
No,
Wilmer Valderrama.
the guy from
Ashton Kutcher.
the guy from the Drew Carey show.
Drew Carey.
The other guy.
Craig Ferguson?
No, the other guy.
Diedrich Bader?
Diedrich
Bader?
Bader. He plays
Really?
he plays Batman in a couple different things.
Rex Kwon Do? He plays Batman?
Wow.
No, and he's great. He played him. Diedrich Bader played Batman in Batman Brave and the Bold, which is a animated series where it was Batman teaming. It was basically a team up show where he teams up with somebody every episode and
Oh,
does
that's
stuff.
cool.
Like it's like
And then-
Superman and then Mr. T.
Yeah,
Yeah,
basically.
just whoever's around.
That's
And
a
so-
dope
Do
team
the
up.
Harlem Globetrotters show up?
Nice.
You
Him
know,
and Meadowlark Lemon.
but the third season of Harley Quinn, Diedrich Bader tweeted like, he's like, the apocalypse cannot come because we need to make this season, because he was reading scripts and it's so, I mean, the first two seasons are hilarious and very good. But he was just saying like, these have to be made so everyone could see them, because he just like, this is the greatest thing ever. And it's very funny. It's very irreverent, a lot of fun.
Nice.
And it's not irreverent just for the sake of being irreverent. It's irreverent while being reverent. Anyway, cartoon shows, good times. Batman, Harley Quinn.
So we're talking about so the movie comes out and it's massive. Like the impact, the marketing we were talking about earlier. Everywhere you went, there was Batman. There was Batman cereal. There was Batman toys. There was Batman comic books and book adaptations and novelizations. There's Batman plates and cups, and Batman's at McDonald's. You can get the the VHS was everywhere. It was huge, absolutely huge. You guys, how well do you remember the marketing?
Batman was everywhere that year.
It was everywhere.
There's like
Tons.
18 video games. So like, there's so
Yeah.
many.
I
Like,
mean, I remember that I was so we were on a family vacation when the movie released, and we rented an RV and drove from Houston to Florida to visit my great grandmother, and so I was not going to be able to see the movie until we got back, and I was so upset that I bought the book because they had written the book based on the movie, and I read that on the trip because I was like, I'm not going to be the only person on the planet who doesn't know what the hell is going on in this movie by the time I get back here. Like, that's ridiculous. So, but yeah, I mean, you could get everything. Like, it was on everything. Like they were pushing the book, obviously. Yeah, all the different merchandising things that were out there. I mean, I had the Batmobile, like the little Batmobile toy car and all that stuff. Maybe my brother did. We had it at the house, I know. So I mean, it was badass, man. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I had the novelization and the comic book adaptation as if I needed both of them.
You're like, I can't get enough of this.
And the movie, like all of it. Like, how different are these things? But
well, and if I remember correctly, it was like, so most novelizations of movies that I've read, and there's only been a handful. John, I know you've read a handful as well, but there's usually like slight differences. Like there will be a little thing here or there, but like a noticeable difference. I feel like in the Batman one, it was like exactly the same from the novelization to the movie.
So I didn't want to bring this up before because I didn't want to derail things, but literally to prepare for this, I did reread the novelization.
Oh my God.
Did you really?
Because when I was a kid, I loved the novelization. Because again, the movie, you can't go to the movies every week. I was 10,
right?
And so I remember loving it, but it was the same thing. Like I couldn't remember. I remember there were differences, but I remember it mostly just being the same. And I was like, how different is it really going to be? But it was really just like there was a couple little things as I'm watching the movie that I'm taking these notes and I'm like, this is from the novelization. This wasn't in this movie. And so if you really want to drill down into nonsense plot differences, I can get into it. But honestly, the novelization's basically the same.
It is, right? Like it's basically the same.
There's a couple little scenes that are different. Like Sean Young getting hurt in that horseback thing. That was a scene in the movie. Instead of that date that they have in Wayne Manor, they have this weird horseback riding date. And it just replaces it. It's just a different thing. And I think they just decided to simplify it. And it's just like little things. Like there's one whole scene that was cut out that in the novel, it's the scene where the Joker comes to her apartment and he sends that box ahead of time with the flowers in it.
Yeah.
And so when Bruce gets there, that's already there. And she thinks there's a bomb in it or something. And he is going to tell her, he doesn't tell her he's Batman like in the movie, but he does take out the belt. Like he has the suit with him for some reason. So he takes the utility belt out. Yeah. And this is like what tips her off that he's Batman. So in the book, it's not that Alfred lets her into the cave. It's that she's already sort of figured it out, and that's there. And then there's this whole crazy sequence where the Joker kidnaps her and Batman's riding on a horse and there's a statue.
I don't remember
unveiling.
that at all.
It's this only one scene is like the one main thing that's cut out, and he takes Vicky with him. Bruce then puts on this half-assed version of the Batman suit that he's brought with him, and he's like swinging between buildings like Spider-Man. And then he lands on a horse. There's a statue unveiling going on.
I remember a statue unveiling.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be the founder of Gotham. It's John Gotham.
Got it. Yeah.
But when he unveils it, it's the Joker. And it's a Joker statue. Batman blows this statue up. And in this same stretch of time, you find out that all the cops have been poisoned. And that's why there's no cops in most of the second half of the movie.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that.
That's basically it. Like there's a couple other little things here and there, but there's this one long sequence that I only remembered that there was a part where Batman's on a horse. So when I reread it, I was like, I'm looking for that scene, and I couldn't remember where it was.
So funny. So all of us have read the novelization.
How great is
So that should say something about the scale and popularity of this movie, though. Like, what other movie? Like, can you get, a random group of people together and the majority of them have all read the novelization for a movie?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
For that movie.
Yeah.
That's how popular it was that year.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy.
And this had a huge lasting impact. I mean, when you look, if you've never seen it before, looking back at this movie now is going to be difficult because you've got so much in between. You've got all the Marvel movies. You've got all the DC movies too, but more importantly, the Marvel ones that are really executed like really, really well, the majority of them at least. But there wouldn't be those movies without this. Like this setting the tone, setting the blueprint, really laid the groundwork. And unfortunately, we didn't really get another comic book movie. The Batman franchise sort of took its own direction through the 90s, but we didn't get another Batman or another superhero movie till 2000 with the X-Men, right?
Blade,
yeah.
Blade, right.
Yeah.
Blade was great. Yep.
Yeah. But as far as a big property movie, I think it was X-Men, right?
Yeah, Blade was always felt like sort of a gamble, and
it always felt like a side thing to me. But I never read the Blade comics at all, so I always thought of that as a movie first.
Right.
And Fantastic Four, the first attempt at that was after the first X-Men, right?
Yeah, a few years.
I thought you meant the wonderful 1994 Fantastic.
The 94 Fantastic,
which is the one I love.
You've seen? I've never seen that.
Oh, it's on YouTube. You can just see it.
I mean, they made that because they were going to lose the rights to the property.
Correct.
Yeah, we covered it on the show just because I really like that movie, but like they never released it, and I don't even know if they've ever released it for sale. I don't think, but you can just find it on YouTube. And it's delightful. Like it's just low budget, lousy thing, but they're so committed. Like everybody in it is so like giving their all, and it's just plucky, and it's really fun. Like,
that's fun.
Yeah.
You can't hate on that, right?
No. It'll be interesting to see what now that I guess Disney and Fox and Marvel can do a take on Fantastic Four where
we'll see.
Yeah,
they could do that. They could do reboot the X-Men.
Yeah,
We'll
They
see.
can-
Well,
all of the above.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, right. If the well is a little dry with the characters that we've seen and we've been following through Endgame and everything, that maybe
yeah, but they just keep introducing new characters, man.
well, right,
Like,
but I mean, maybe X-Men is the new version of that, where you really like reboot each of those characters and build it all together. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe.
But this movie, we've got a million different video games between Nintendo and Genesis and the arcade games. We get Batman Returns, which we covered here in 1992. We get Batman Forever in 1995 and Batman and Robin in 1997. And by that point, I don't know, the franchise had gone such a different direction and people were so confused, especially by Batman and Robin, and sort of let down by where we are at this point, that we kind of pumped the brakes on everything Batman after that.
For a while, yeah.
yeah. I mean, when the big news coming out of the shoot is like whether or not Batman's suit has nipples, like,
Yeah,
Not a good sign.
yeah.
like what's going on?
We're talking
here?
about the wrong things.
Yeah.
And not to say, of course, Val Kilmer and George Clooney and all of the actors in those movies are great actors, but
Yeah.
I think unfortunately it's Schumacher's approach, which is just a completely different thing, especially from what Tim Burton was doing, that we're moving back into that campy direction.
Yeah,
Which-
a lot of neon and dark lights. And,
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a kaleidoscopian nightmare. Is
Yeah.
how I define those two movies.
yeah,
But-
that's fair.
That's but I can't hate on it because I think the existence of the old Batman show, the Adam West show, it's almost like, well, I'm not saying they're good or anything, but I can't say that this isn't exactly Batman. I think
it's like endearing?
I think it's still kind of Batman. Like it's just
It's a version of it, but it's like a step back, right? Like it feels,
for sure.
like
after what we've already seen, like to kind of go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a different way to portray it, because Tim Burton's, the criminals it's basically everybody's in the 40s, the 30s and the 40s,
Right.
and then Schumacher just sort of transforms it into campy, neon and goofy stuff. And I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's too widely different. I just think it's not as cohesive as.
Well, I
what
also
Burton was
just
doing.
don't like the introduction of like multiple like villains that was
There you
done in even in Burton's Returns. Like it's
Yeah.
just not.
No, there's
Okay.
only two.
This is look.
Yeah, but
Max
even
Shrek.
then, like I feel like, what's that?
Don't forget about Max Shrek.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's good.
But I
point.
mean, like I just feel like that doesn't give any one of the villains,
Sure. No,
their
I-
ability to.
I'll argue that all the way, that the best superhero movies really just have one villain, and they're so rare. There's really not that many. So Batman here, we get just the Joker, and then in Batman Returns you get three villains with Catwoman, the Penguin, and Max Shrek. You're right, Joe. And then you get at least two in Batman Forever with Two-Face and the Riddler, and then you get
who are the
three-
same character because they're both psychotic and goofy. It
Yeah.
doesn't make sense
Yeah.
that they're the same character.
Yeah.
That's the reason that failed. It's because the Riddler, the Two-Face is exactly like the Riddler, and they're in the movie together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember, they're zany
Yeah.
together. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
make sense. Like, all right, never mind.
And then Batman Robin, you get three villains again because you get Poison Ivy, you get Mr. Freeze, and Bane is in that one.
That's
So-
sad.
Brain.
Bane. Yeah.
Well, and they introduced
Right.
Batgirl, and it's like, I mean,
Yeah.
there's way too much going on.
So
Yeah.
many characters.
Not enough
man.
time for anybody
No.
to get any kind of like story or character build. I mean, it's just like it's a big old mess.
And that's the problem with the Spider-Man movie, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies as they go along too.
Right.
A little too much.
Yeah, well, you start with the
Alright.
Green Goblin, and then you get what, Harry Osborn and Doc Ock in the second one, and then you've got I don't know how many in the third, and all sorts of other problems.
Sandman and whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Harry's not really a villain in the second one, so it's just really Doc Ock.
Kind of. He's just kind of like alluding to it the whole time.
Superman 3 had 4 villains. If you're gonna,
Yeah.
Superman 2 had 4 villains. So get
But
Well,
they were like
they're a team,
They were
a
like a
team.
corporation. They were like an evil corporation.
well, there's like 4 people.
and one of them had no dialogue.
Are you including that guy in the diner who beats him up? There's like
Oh,
6
that's
villains in
5.
that movie.
There's a million villains.
Leave Pepper Martin out of your mouth.
Wasn't that guy in the
Spider-Man
second
2
one?
is the greatest superhero movie for that generation, though. You can't, Spider-Man 3 is that's got problems. But Spider-Man 2, like,
I love Spider-Man 2.
for a decade, there was nothing that could beat that. Like,
Yeah.
But I
doesn't
see your
matter.
That's
point
fair.
with the Batman movies. I think is interesting.
that's-
To come out of like the 2 serious ones and then the 2 campy ones, kind of makes me think of the current Batman run too. Is that like you get the Nolan movies are so dark,
Yeah.
and then you get these new Batman movies that are terrible. But the Ben Affleck Batman isn't a bad Batman.
He's not
Like
bad.
he's a pretty good character.
No,
It's just
but-
he's now fallen into this terrible world that they've created.
Well,
So-
and with a lot of franchises, you have that problem. Like Pierce Brosnan is a great James Bond,
not great
stuck
James Bond
with-
movies.
and yeah,
But not a
with
good
not
movie,
great
right?
scripts and not great movies. But
Yeah.
it's not him as an actor. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, that's the thing with all these movies. No matter who you're talking about, effective actors, they do their job. They're there.
Yeah.
Some of these things are not designed well. Some of them are not written well. And some of them are both. And you know what? You just kind of either, we rank them and say, yeah, this isn't really for me, and we move on. But
Yeah. Well, I
And-
mean, look at how many Jokers and Batmans have won Oscars. Like, it's almost all of them. Like, it's an amazing thing, really.
Right.
Like in the last 30 years.
yeah,
So I mean, you get quality people. Hell,
Yeah.
Kim Basinger won an Oscar. Like, I mean, there's a lot of connected people here. Jack
Yeah.
Palance won an Oscar.
are we
Yep.
down to is it just Robert Wool and maybe
Yeah, Robert Wool and
William Hootkins?
poor
they haven't
Hootkins.
won the Oscar yet.
God,
Yes.
Hootkins was really robbed.
He was Rob.
Hashtag justice
It's
for
gonna
Porkins.
lifetime achievement's coming though.
It's about time.
Porkins is my all-time favorite Star Wars character. That's it.
Yeah.
Oh,
I,
The
have
best.
I actually have the figure.
Nice.
Oh.
I have a Porkins T-shirt.
is
There
it
you
just
go.
as is
You
it,
can see the picture on Instagram.
is the action figure just his torso? Like, because that's all you've seen of the character.
Yeah.
It's really just his head, but you gotta like,
It comes in a ship. You
yeah.
can't get Porkins out.
He's just part of the ship. He dies.
Yeah.
He's on fire.
All right, should we talk a little box office glory? You want to see how this movie did?
Let's
Sure.
get into the meat of it, John.
Have we talked about the plot yet?
What happens in the movie?
What is the movie about, though?
No idea.
Rampant capitalism.
And he's
crime.
anti-fashion. I got notes. He's anti-art. I don't know what I'm
It
What else
is,
you got,
yeah.
Joe? I want to hear more.
Oh, my
about it.
notes are crazy.
What,
like
what, what are
I-
kind of
Fire
the bullet
away,
points?
Joe.
What are the bigger?
I've
bullet
got.
points?
Is there the
Just-
the
just
sexual
people-
tension between Carl and Jack? I think is an interesting point out. I don't think Jack even likes Alicia. Every scene he's with her, he kind of shits all over.
Yeah, he's a bad
Yeah.
person.
I think he loves Jack. I think they love each other, and
Yeah.
then Bob loves Jack too. And Jack kills
That
both of
definitely.
them.
Yep.
It's a very sexy tension.
Yeah, sugar bumps. I just think that's
Sugar bumps.
it's a sexy thing. Pat Hingle's Nine Fingers.
What else you got?
Let's see the plot, anti-consumerism plot, because the
Yeah.
plot is very much don't buy this stuff because it's going to kill you, and I think this is
Yeah.
the underlying theme. Let's
Yet
move
they're
away from
selling so
consumerism.
much Batman stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
It's crazy.
It's conflicting. They needed to sell the stuff to get Jack on board.
Yeah.
Anti-art. Because Jack is a performance artist and he hates like museum art. So
Clearly.
they destroy all of
We
that.
have a whole sequence with Prince accompanying us.
It's a great scene, by the way.
So I mean, there's that. This is the first time I noticed that the exteriors of Wayne Mansion that they only show it once or twice, but that's also the exterior for the Mallory Gallery in the Great Muppet Caper. The sequence at the end. I just noticed it the last time I watched it. I was like, that's the same fence, and I had to look it up. And that's so that's in there. I got some more novelization stuff, but that's mostly it. Yeah.
I never read them. Yeah, I did.
You're the only one.
I
The
didn't weigh
only
in
one-
because I had nothing to. I didn't read that.
Oh, you should check it out. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I had a bunch of the novelizations from '89. I had Last Crusade. I had Batman. I had Back to the Future too.
There was a novelization of BTTF.
Yeah. Everything.
Yeah.
There's all the big movies happen.
I'm confident I had Back to the Future 2 and I had Batman Returns too. And I think they're all written by the same person, if I'm not completely
Are they?
mistaken.
A lot
Craig
of them
Shaw
are,
Gardner, I believe, wrote all of those.
yeah,
books, I think
him and Alan Dean Foster are like
Alan Dean Foster wrote a lot
yeah,
of those. Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. The only novelizations I ever read were Batman,
China Syndrome.
Terminator 2, and Braveheart. Like I read those
nice.
3 novelizations.
Nice. Yeah, I had a weird
The
run where I was
network.
buying novelizations. Like,
Yeah,
I think I had
they're
Sleeping
cool.
with the Enemy. I don't know why.
Why not?
Yeah,
That's funny.
it was
Well,
like
I
at the
was-
drugstore.
Do they still do them?
I don't know, do they?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
That seems like a sweet gig, writing a novelization.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You,
right.
you just got the first draft of the script like 18 months before they
Yeah.
start shooting it. And you
Pretty
just write
much.
a book.
Alan Dean Foster like took his really seriously. Like I have a lot of his, and I just read Alien and The Thing, and he like it is a different approach. Like it is sort of like he's using the script, but he's telling it in a kind of a different way.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan.
Well, he was a real writer. I mean, he also did his own stuff. Craig Shaw Gardner also ended up writing their own stuff. So you can see there's little like they want to add a little something of their own. So there's a little artistic kind of turn on them, where you would think it's almost just a straightforward thing. Like I've read the Star Wars novelization that I think Lucas wrote, and like it's just straightforward. There's no art in that at all. So.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the only novelization I've ever read in my life would have been the novelization of the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And it was
that's awesome.
And it was different.
Yeah. Nice.
All right.
It was slightly different.
Here's what we're gonna do. An upcoming episode on just talking about novelizations.
Love it.
That's what we do. The novelization of the movie.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Is that the big surprise for the end of the episode?
Oh no, no.
ReconCinemation is now Recon
We're gonna
novelization.
We're gonna find out. We got to get through these box office numbers. But yeah, we're gonna
let's get
find
back to
out.
the
Box Hub. Okay, so the movie shot at Pinewood Studios for the most part in London in October '88 to February '89.
Pinewood.
Love it.
Yeah,
Oh, that
the
makes
first
sense.
one. Yeah,
All right, I get it.
I'm sure they did some things at the Warner Brothers.
I was gonna say,
lot,
like,
but-
it almost seems like it should be Warner Brothers. But I don't think it is. I was
yeah, a
trying to
lot of the
think.
big sets were all at Pinewood. That's where you do the big
Ah.
movies. But it had a budget that there's various stories about what the budget was. It started as 35. I think it ended up closer to 48 million. So huge budget, very expensive. It opened up June 23rd, 1989 at number 1 against. Does anybody remember what it opened up against?
Was it Honey, I Shrunk the Kids?
You nailed it. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Wow.
Nice.
Oh,
The
Rick
biggest opening
Moranis-
weekend of all time, I think, when it opened.
Rick Moranis couldn't stand a chance against Michael Keaton.
That's tough, man.
Poor Moranis.
Poor Moranis.
Hey,
We
that
love
movie
him.
did all right by itself. Don't
It
worry.
did.
Oh, yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Spawned 2 sequels, so
Yeah.
you know.
Two.
It had a
Did it?
40
I think there's more.
There's
No,
a new
a
one
whole
coming out,
bunch.
isn't there?
Straight to. I mean, because I think there's a whole like
Honey,
life of like straight to video sequels
Yep.
too, man.
get
And
out
there was a
That's
series.
cool.
There was a series also.
Honey, I
cartoon
keep
series?
blowing up myself. Like, oh, honey, I shrunk my foot. Honey, I shrunk your sister. Oh no. Just a bunch of wacky hijinks every day with that
boy.
shrinking machine.
Yeah, because
Honey, I Shrunk the Mailman.
blew up the kid. Is that part 2?
That's 3.
That's 3. What's the second? I forgot.
Oh
what the
wait,
second one was.
Shrunk the
Oh.
kids. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Oh
is the
wait,
first
no.
one.
The second is blow up the kid, and the third one's we shrunk,
shrunk
ourselves.
ourselves.
We
Right.
shrunk ourselves.
Oh, okay, yeah. that's
Yeah.
right. I've never seen either of those.
No.
I just assume it's a massive
Classic
franchise.
films.
But am I wrong? Isn't Moranis coming back to do a new thing like for Disney or something with Honey with
Yeah,
the
I
series?
think there's.
I'm not
yes.
sure, but I hope he comes back for something.
I
miss
mean,
Mr.
his
Moranis.
kids
I
are,
miss
are
Rick
doctors
Moranis all the time.
He's not
Yeah,
raising
they're
kids
all grown
anymore.
up
Like
now.
it's time to get back to Hollywood, Rick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
He
Too bad
doesn't
ours.
need to, but we want him.
We
Yeah.
want you there.
All the time.
Spoiler alert: he's not in the Ghostbusters movie.
I know.
Ah,
It's the
sad.
one. It's like the one thing for me that's like makes it not a perfect movie.
Exactly.
But we could hold out for a Strange Brew sequel. So
Oh,
Well, hey,
fingers
there you go.
crossed.
Yeah.
If him and Dave Thomas want to do that, I would be.
Absolutely.
I'm down.
I will fund that Kickstarter. I am fine with that.
Absolutely.
All right, so Batman had a $40.4 million opening weekend.
What?
Yeah. It ended up with a 251 million domestic run, 411 million worldwide. That's enormous numbers at the time. It was number one of 1989. Of all the movies that came out in 89, Batman was number one, ahead of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade and Lethal Weapon 2, both of which were ahead of Back to the Future 2, which in hindsight, I would have thought that would have beaten Lethal Weapon 2.
There's too much time in between 1 and 2 for Back to the Future, I feel like. 5 years, right? Wasn't it something like 5 years?
4
Or 5
years, but it's a big 4 years.
Yeah.
It is a big 4 years.
It's
a
like
lot happened in the world.
Michael J. Fox.
We were not the same.
Does not look like teenage, teenage.
He doesn't look like a high school senior.
Yeah.
When did Back to the Future 2 come out? Was that in the fall?
It was, I think it was later.
Right before Thanksgiving, right?
Was it?
Yeah.
Because I knew there was only a couple months between that and 3, but I don't remember. I knew 3 was in 90,
Actually,
but I can't remember when they came out.
It was November. It was a Thanksgiving movie.
Yeah, it was I think it was about 4 or 5 month gap between 2 and 3.
Okay.
But of the Batman franchise, of all the Batman movies to date, financially speaking, Batman 1989 ranks number 5. Right between Batman Begins and Batman versus Superman.
Gross.
Yeah.
Gross.
Gross.
So,
but adjusted, it's probably higher. I don't know.
I probably, if you adjusted for inflation,
right?
I'm sure.
So what's number 1? Dark Knight.
I believe it is Dark
right?
Knight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another.
Is there a better movie than The Dark Knight?
Right.
Other than Spider-Verse, I don't know.
No. Spider-Verse is awesome.
Spider-Verse is the greatest.
The summer of 2008 though was just awesome. It was just wall to wall awesome.
Good movie year.
That was the year Joe had crafted a box office pool that I was a part of.
That's right.
That was
we did until
the
coronavirus. We did that for what was that? 12 years?
13, 12 years.
Yeah.
And that was the year. That was it. That was there's so many good movies.
That was the first pool we did was that summer. And you won because you had The Dark Knight.
I won I only won because I couldn't pick the Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones, right?
I would have picked that if I had.
Indiana Jones was taken first, and then Dark Knight was second.
I took Dark Knight second.
I forget what was. I think Prince Caspian was picked third.
Oh my god!
There were some big mistakes because I was fifth, and I got Iron Man at 5, so I came in second.
Wow!
Yeah. That was a weird pool.
That was a $300 million movie at that time.
Yeah, Iron Man was I think it was second or third because Indiana Jones did about 300 too.
Yeah, Iron Man should have been it, but Dark Knight just almost was 570 or almost 600.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're talking big money,
big box office. Yeah.
Oh, 2008.
Oh, that was the year I moved to Chicago. 2008 was the best.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You've been in Chicago longer than I lived there. So
yeah. I've been here. God, what is that now? 13 years.
We're getting to the origins, guys. Sorry.
I'm sorry. You guys are getting the origin story. This is how I turned into this.
John and I talk
joke.
about our origin story all the time.
Yeah.
So this is fine.
Joe and I grew up in the same town in Pennsylvania. And
right. There were no comic book stores in Scranton when we were kids, right?
Kids. I don't know. Until I got to high school, it was Comics on the Green.
Because Comics on the Green was downtown, but that was when I was older, 13.
Yeah.
Right.
How do you not have a comic book store?
There was some. Say that I cannot remember a comic book store.
I bet it was there
in my youth as well, but there had to be one.
Brent? Where did you grow up?
I grew up outside Houston, so I know that there's definitely a comic book store in Houston. But and I would have had to have gone to a comic book because there was a moment in my life, like in middle school, where I did collect comic books. It was like 3 months. And I was like, I'm positive I went to a comic book store during that time. But for the life of me, I cannot remember anything about it. Until college. Do I remember a comic book store?
I used to get mine at the drugstore. Like that's where
I was always in the spinner rack with
exactly. The spinner rack. Yep.
No, that's right. I got them at the grocery store.
Exactly.
Yeah. It wasn't until college that I was aware of actual comic book stores, one of which I worked at. But
No,
Jones
I
had all sorts of jobs.
I was like in 8th grade, I want to say, before I really found a comic book store, and it was way out in Dixon City, like, which is not right in Scranton. It's like, it's like a suburb of Scranton.
Oh, I think that one was there for a long time though.
Yeah, I don't remember the name of it, but that was the first one I really went to. And then remember, I used to order. They used to have that order form in the back of the comics, and you could you had to send them a money order to get comics.
Yeah,
That's how I got comics.
Coming through the mail.
Yeah.
Damn. Shit. Oh man, we were children once.
Oh boy, the origin stories.
We were kids once, guys.
Oh boy. Yeah.
This is what podcasts are.
Nice. Well, if the box office ever sorts out, we can start that pool again. But that's been, we've stopped since then, because there's no, like, the movies that come out, there's one big movie a year anymore. Like, no one's going to see anything.
Everything's unpredictable.
Yeah, we can't do it now.
Anyway. So yeah. All these movies. What were we talking about?
Let's get into
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Fantastic Four, 1994.
We've talked about all of it.
We've covered.
What else could we possibly talk about?
What else can we cover about Batman? I don't know. I mean, there's so much. That's the thing, is that movie it was such a big movie. It was so huge for us. It was our first big movie of our childhood, followed probably by Jurassic Park, a few years after that.
Yeah.
But this was the one that we could really connect with, because we missed Star Wars. We just missed Back to the Future. And even that as great, Back to the Future is an amazing, amazing movie, but it didn't have the marketing machine behind it. Like, there weren't Back to the Future toys and video games and comic books. There was a cartoon years later, but that's only because of part 2, really.
Yeah.
Batman was the first one for us that felt like it was our movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I can't even think, like, around that, like, 90 had Dick Tracy, felt like it was supposed to be a big movie, but it was too old a property. Yeah. Terminator 2 is an adult movie. Like, that's not a kid's movie.
Roger Rabbit, maybe a little bit, even in 88, but it didn't have that, like, that's a new character, that wasn't like Batman has a whole history, a 40, 50 year history.
I mean, it was a global, like, phenomenon, like, everybody was talking Batman. Not everybody was talking Roger Rabbit.
Right.
I mean, they may have after it released, but, like, everybody was talking Batman leading up to the release 6 months before, and throughout the summer. So
they have a market.
I mean, I guess they never sold Goodfellas toys, so 90 was tough. There's only so much to latch onto.
Get the papers. We could have had a toy of that. But that is the thing about this, though, is like the fact that they, like, permeate so well. It's not just exactly the quality of the movie, right? It's that marketing of it, like, meaning that we need to make sure you see this movie, and then also you're going to pick up the ancillary products and all of that. So, if you want to think comic book movies and stuff like that, there was a Ninja Turtles movie that was based on comic books, based on a cartoon, like, and there was
and those toys were a big deal for sure.
Those toys were awesome. I was a Ninja Turtle guy. Like, I don't care. But there was always Hollywood plucking from comic books. So, like, the Jim Carrey movie, The Mask, right? Like, that was technically a comic book, right?
Yeah.
Like, what else was there? There was, like, Judge Dredd, like that. These things in the 90s, they were always
like Flash Gordon books. And, like, all, I mean,
exactly.
Yeah,
so
but they didn't really circle back to the big names until 2000, and then obviously after that. So 90s were weird for, Blade. Like, let's do of all the Marvel characters, let's do Blade.
Yeah. Like this killing vampires.
Was that in direct, like, correspondence with the popularity of, like, Interview with the Vampire and things like that at that time?
Nope. Blade was 98. Way later.
Right before Mystery Men, right after Steel. And
Steel.
Spawn.
Right.
There's
right after,
Michael Jai White's Spawn.
And I will say, Blade is a fantastic movie, right?
Yeah,
like,
it's good.
For what that is supposed to be, that is a great movie. Like,
it's good.
It's a great action comic book movie. Like, it hit it out of the park, and spawned 2 sequels.
Yeah.
And the third one's great. And the second one's great. They're fun. I'm a big fan.
but Batman was a win for everybody. I mean, it cemented so many people as moving up to the A-list. Tim Burton, Michael Keaton, Kim Basinger, Jack became an even bigger star than he already was. Warner Brothers made a ton of money off of it. So,
Palance got City Slickers off of that.
Yeah. That's the beginning of the cut. Well, I guess it starts with Young Guns. Let's not forget that.
Fair.
David's favorite movie.
My favorite.
Doesn't part 3 come out this year?
Well, I don't think they've actually said what 3 is. If it's
no.
a comic
Young
book
Guns 3.
or a what?
I just
a
know it
movie
shows.
or-
I just know that it shows up on release calendars for 2000.
They announced a Young Guns 3 with the original cast.
Oh,
So
boy.
it's a question mark. Is it a video
They're all
game?
60 years old.
Is
It's
it
a time travel thing.
Maybe it should be, but
Yeah.
Michael J. Fox shows up. Doc Brown's there.
yeah.
Be awesome.
Oh, Doc.
But Batman was a huge movie, and I'm glad we got a chance to talk about it. And Joe, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's always so much fun having you here. We love your notes.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
I had a great time. I was so prepared, and I realized that I didn't use most of it.
Oh.
I didn't need all of this stuff. Yeah.
We'll do a sequel. Maybe we'll do a sequel.
I got nothing interesting left to say.
Okay, cool. So before we kind of sign off for the night, I will circle back to our special announcement of what's happening here. Just to put it out there, there's been a few changes behind the scenes, specifically with me, and we are gonna unfortunately have to kind of dial back how many episodes we're doing, and we may have to take a pause for a little while. Which is sad news, but it's ultimately for good reasons. But we will do as many episodes as we can. We're going to take a little break, and then we'll be back. Hopefully, we can start, putting out some more episodes as soon as we can get our schedules back in line. But we have had so much fun doing this show, and we're going to have one more episode coming up, which is another mega episode. If you thought this was a mega episode, we've got another one coming that's going to have another special guest with us, and it's going to be amazing. But I'm glad we were able to get this one out. This is a big movie, and Joe's, again, it was super fun having you back with us. And
for sure.
Hopefully we can pick the podcast back up, and we can keep doing it. The plan is not to stop it entirely, but we may have to slow down. So there we go. That's the news. But Joe, tell us about your podcast. You've also got one, and I know you've had some amazing episodes that a couple of us may have participated in recently.
Yeah, me and the wife have a podcast that we started during the pandemic because we needed something to do, and it's sort of a history pop culture-y thing. It's called It Happened One Year. And we pick a year, and then we do all these different topics from this year. We're still on what we would call season 1, but we're kind of wrapping up now, and that season is based on 1994. And I managed to get Dave and John to come out and participate in our one scripted episode, which was really fun and came out, I think, really well. And we keep plugging along just for something to do. So check it out. It's not, your show is a very regimented, detail-oriented, thoughtful show, and ours is a freewheeling bunch of nonsense. So it's not exactly the same thing, but we have a good time with it. So check it out.
Where can everybody find it?
Oh, it's available everywhere podcasts are available. So I think we're housed on Podbean, but we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, the whole schmear.
Nice.
So when you get to season 2, so you said season 1 is 1984. Is season 2 like 1863?
Exactly.
You're just going to
1863. We're going to cover the Civil War,
exciting
the pop culture things of the era.
Yes, all the famous books written in 1863, and all of Hitchcock's early films, which
there you go.
He scrawled them on a wall. So.
I'm just pitching a year.
I like the ideas. No, we're still working on what exactly we're going to do for the season 2, but we're looking at some years. It's gonna be something where there was still media.
Oh,
Can't go
okay,
back
me-
too far. So
2008. What about
So it's
2008?
something like 20th century. at least,
89.
right? Like,
You know,
yeah,
there's lots
I
to
know.
do.
Well, I was gonna pick 85, but I've already done Teen Wolf here, and I don't want to cannibalize my
there's
my
always
material.
there's always more Teen Wolf to talk about.
There always is.
There's so
Even
much. to
Teen
say.
Wolf 2.
Oh
So,
baby, we got to do Teen Wolf 2. Yeah.
yes.
Well, awesome. So, guys, check out It Happened One Year. And as always, thank you to E.K. Wimmer for the theme music and our friend Curtis for the poster. And again, just stay tuned. We're going to keep trying to pump out episodes as often as we can do it. It may not be at the regular pace that we've been for the last few years, but we're going to do it as much as possible. So stay tuned. We're going to have one more really great episode coming up in the next couple of weeks. So we will see you on the next episode of ReconCinemation.
Take care.
I know.
Let's get into the meat of it.
Let's loop back into the plot now.
What's the actual movie about?
What the hell was the deal with Bob anyway?
The adventure continues. Now with Batman, the serial. And nothing can slow him down. Nothing can stop him from bringing it to you. It's here. A smashing taste. A honey nut flavored part of your complete breakfast. Batman, cereal.
Oh,
Did we even talk about Batman? We talked about everything else.
Yeah, not much. Not much. Yeah. We didn't talk about the balloons and in the novelization, Knox gets shot, and then
Does he live?
I do.
He
remember
lives.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
he lives.
But at the end, when after the Joker falls and Batman collapses because he's now been in a plane crash and all this other stuff, there's like they go over to the Joker and then they see like a Batman over there and they whip off his cape and it's Knox, and that's like
my
this joke. So
That's
Yeah.
funny.
yeah, I don't think that was worth sticking in. I don't think that was
Oh, this is good. This is
I think
good
that's
post credit. This is
Yep.
post credit.
This is all going back there. So
Oh, okay. At least we'll
Yeah.
throw it back in.
Yeah.